I'll never forget these words. He said, if you can figure out how to help me out of this situation, I'll practically give you the house. I almost dropped the phone out of my hand. And I didn't even know what to say, but I just said, sir, I have no idea how I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna figure it out. Let me start making some calls.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 6 of the Andrew Deitsch podcast. I had an awesome birthday yesterday and we had gotten a lot of reviews and 5-star ratings on iTunes. So that has been super duper helpful, but we still need more. If you can hit up iTunes or if you have the iPhone podcast app, I would greatly appreciate those reviews and ratings, and just consider it a late birthday present from me. My guest today is Parker Stiles. Parker is the owner of Barrington Acquisitions, a company that he runs with his wife, where they purchase, renovate, and sell or rent out single-family houses and other properties. And I met Parker a number of years ago. He really stuck out to me as a guy I wanted to get to know better and stay in touch with. Back when I was running my own business, we were actually working together, and I was staying with another friend that ended up kind of getting kicked out of his apartment, and I wasn't on the lease. I was just kind of staying with him, and I had no place to stay for a while, and I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do because my business was being run over in this area, and my parents lived kind of farther away, and so living with them was my only option. I couldn't do that because like I said, my business was over in this area. And I mentioned it to Parker, and he immediately said that I could stay with him until I was able to figure out my living situation, which was really just just a blessing, and that just really showed me what kind of guy he is. And I really wanted to have Parker on the podcast because number one, he's such an awesome guy, but number two, he also has just such an amazing story. He actually went from being an unemployed college graduate to now running a business with multiple employees that pays him while he sleeps. And this podcast was extremely informative, and Parker gives some practical information on how he started his company and what it takes to run a successful business. So, without any further ado, give it up for my friend Parker Stiles.
Live. Cool.
All right, Parker Stiles. What's up,
What's
man?
up? It's doing good.
So this is my buddy Parker Stiles. How long have we known each other? For a couple years now?
Yeah, I think probably more than that. Shoot, we've graduated for a couple of years since then. I think we met like junior or senior year.
Yeah.
Old KSU.
Yeah. So we met when we were in a company called Vima, which I've talked about on the podcast a little bit, but not extensively, but we'll probably get into that in a little bit. But
for sure,
just so people kind of get like a little bit of background story of Parker Stiles. I've said this on a lot of podcasts so far, but I think we tend to think of someone as like a static object, and obviously people change and things happen along your life that are kind of milestones that kind of lead you up to where you are today. How old are you, by the way, right now?
I'm 26, turned 26 in December.
Nice. So take me back, from, just the brief history of Parker Stiles from when you were a baby to, when you're now all the way up to 26-year-old Parker Stiles. What kind of...
All right, I'll try and fast forward through the
just
first
like the milestones,
18 years or so. But
exactly.
So I was born in Athens, Georgia. Awesome town to grow up in. Georgia Bulldog fan through and through. So that's where my life started. I lived there for 18 years, went to North Oconee High School. I was we were the first, actually when I was there were no freshmen. I went there as there were no seniors, I'm sorry. The school was so new that there was only freshman, junior, and senior class.
Wow.
So might have skipped out on some of that, the freshman hate there without any seniors being there. But yeah, that was a cool environment. And, but as fun as Georgia and Athens is, as much as I love going back there, I was ready to get out of town by the time I turned 18.
So you weren't trying to go to UGA?
No, I'm not saying I'd be able to get in first round either, but I was ready to see the big city and just kind of experience what I thought. I knew there was more out there for me to see. So that took me and my best friend Taylor Perry up to KSU. That we graduated together from Athens. Started Kennesaw State University as a freshman in 2009, and let's see, milestones in college. Man, college was an awesome time. People call it the 4 best years of your life. For me, 5 had to make that victory lap. But it was a great time. But I promised myself when I graduated, it was funny, how Facebook does those memories. Yeah. And you roll back on it and you can see things that you posted. And I read my post from the day that I graduated, and it said a bunch of other stuff, but at the end it's like, people say, these X years are the best years of your life and you'll always remember them, and it's like, yeah, that's true, but I'm making a promise to myself right now that those are not going to be the best 4 to 5 years of my life. That's going to be a great time and it's going to be hard to top, but I'm not going to pursue with that the average trajectory of, the human life from graduation day of college. Yeah. Going to get a job and, waking up, rush hour traffic, going to work, coming back, hanging out with the wife for, a couple hours, watching TV, going to bed, waking up and doing it all over again. So so I graduated in 2014, I believe.
Yeah, sounds right.
And right after college, I went to, my dad's been in real estate, so I'll kind of jump into that.
So your dad's in real estate. What does your mom do? She was
a teacher for,
nice.
Oh man, she's 60-something, low 60s right now. She was a teacher for, I think, close to 40 years.
Wow.
A long time.
And so now she's retired.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, she retired.
So kind of growing up, like you looked up to your dad as a real estate. Did you ever think you were going to go into that growing up? Or
what I tell people is, I always knew that I was going to be in real estate. I just didn't know what form that was going to take place in.
Gotcha.
I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't really know all the areas and how big real estate was.
Yeah.
I knew it was a vast occupation, but I didn't know how many rabbit holes there were to go down. So
definitely. And without boasting or whatever, your dad did pretty well for himself, right? He was successful in that endeavor.
His dad started a multifamily and single family. I'd call it a small empire.
A small empire
in Athens standards.
Gotcha.
He acquired a bunch of single family houses. I would say between 70 and 80 single family houses around downtown Athens. And this is a long time ago. Older houses built in between the 1910 and 1950s.
Wow, those are cool houses.
Yeah, and then also Stiles Properties, which was the apartment complex. I think it was about 600 units or so. I could be off on that number. In 5 Points. And so this is that big brick building in 5 Points. And so he owned and managed it first. Started at a young age. This is my dad I'm talking about. And then slowly took over ownership from his dad. So he kind of walked into that, which was cool for him. He didn't build that, but he expanded it by a good bit. He went into shopping centers and stuff like that. I think he could have done a lot more, but kind of he's explained to me before, it's a weird relationship from the last generation father-son to this generation father-son, depending on the families that you're talking about. He had a really big fear of not wanting to screw up what his dad had accomplished. So there was a lot of fear there of growing
on the legacy.
Exactly. A lot of opportunities that he turned down for fear of failure and then being reprimanded and just not being viewed the way he wanted to be viewed by his father. So that kind of sparked a little fire in me of why I wanted to start something of my own. I wanted to use his expertise and knowledge and wisdom to do something, but I wanted it to be my own because I didn't want to be held, with that cloud over my head, thinking that, oh, what if I screw up? I don't want to, X, Y, and Z. So that was that. He did do well though, and then in, let's see, probably 5 years ago, just the maintenance for these older houses were getting to be a lot. Then we had the semi-depression and financial depression in 2008, and rents were low and vacancy was high, and the business wasn't doing too hot. So we started entertaining the idea of selling. We actually held until the market kind of turned around a little bit. This was maybe around 2012 or 13, and he ended up selling. So that was a big day. But one thing I really learned and I thought was really cool was he didn't just sell and take those capital gains and take the hit and spend the money or put it in a retirement account or anything like that. At first, we tried a 1031 exchange. If you're familiar with it, 1031 exchange is basically you try and qualify. It's a government tax code or loophole, you could call it, where you can take the proceeds, the capital gains from one real estate sale, and as long as it's a like kind, quote unquote, like kind investment, you can roll those profits into the next investment tax free.
Gotcha.
Tax free, it's really tax deferred. But still, you're not.
But you're not paying taxes on those profits and having to pay again when you buy something else.
Exactly. I mean, because he knew that the lifestyle that he wanted to live and the kind of the legacy, if you want to call it, what he wanted to leave would not happen if he just made that sale. And that was, say he had, call it $1 million, and that's all he's going to have for the rest of his life. That's not how he grew up, because he grew up with the passive income mindset.
Yeah.
So that he wanted to keep that going. So he's like, I can't just take this cash. I've got to roll it into something. So we tried to do the 1031, or he did, but we ended up not qualifying. So we took a nice pay cut from Uncle Sam there. But it is what it is.
Uncle Sam,
but we still rolled it in.
Stealing the dough.
Yeah. But we rolled it into 3 commercial properties. And so that's been a whole new segment that I've been able to learn from. And I was able to be part of the buying process with that. I went on the tours with him. I worked with the broker and just kind of went. I was involved in that process, which was cool to see. And I think that'll help me down the road. And I own a small percentage of those from my granddad passing down shares, as we got older. And I just said, he gave me the choice. He's like, you want to keep the money and put it in your savings, do whatever you want with it, buy a car. And I said, no, I think I'll just give it back to you. I want to do whatever you're going to do with it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So now I've got a small percentage in those, I think, 2 buildings.
Nice.
Which is cool. So
that's really awesome. So your grandpa's still alive?
He's not actually. He died about a year ago or so, but he lived a long.
But before he did, he kind of gave you that option?
Well, my granddad didn't. My granddad was kind of out of it by that point. This was all communication between, sorry I didn't clarify, between my dad and I. Gotcha. It got to a point where my dad kind of had to start making decisions based on...
Makes sense.
Based on his health.
It's just what you got to do. Cool. So, so growing up, you saw your dad with the real estate stuff, and then you graduated, and you're kind of like, I want to jump into that world too, but you weren't exactly sure.
So I started right out of college. I got an internship. Well, I guess this was my last semester of college.
Yeah.
I got an unpaid internship at Brown Realty Advisors with one of my dad's old fraternity brothers. He knew I wanted to do real estate. I just didn't know what direction, like I said earlier. So he's like, well, try this. I did some interviews and got in, and it was pretty sad. I got to experience a little bit. It was multifamily, a brokerage, and it was cool to see a little bit, but I had no motivation. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just a part of real estate that I wasn't interested in. It was salesy, so it's as an agent, like an agent sells a house, same thing, but you're working with investor buyers for, say, 300 to 1,000 unit apartment complexes.
Gotcha.
And then also working with the apartment complexes, say that an owner has it, but he's ready to sell. So they're to sell and list it. So I did that
the whole complex, you're saying?
Exactly, the whole complex, which would be selling to another investor buyer. So you're working with investors. Learning how to analyze those properties, cap rates, numbers, that was cool. But again, I dreaded waking up and going in there and fighting traffic to get there. And, it was cool working with the investors, but I was so, small time, and I was just kind of shadowing people. I didn't really get in there. But something about the investor side just seemed really cool. You know, like they're there, they're they've got all this cash, they're making these big deals, working these numbers. That's what's always interested me. You know, people ask, "What's your passion?" And I say, "I don't really know. I don't have like a defined passion." But if I finally, one time, let's say probably 5 years ago, I really just like asked myself and spent a lot of time thinking like, what is my passion? I always thought it was money, but people say money can't be your passion. And until this time I said, well, it is money, but it's not the money, it's what the money allows me to do or will allow me to do. At that time I was broke, so I didn't have any money.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I dwindled it down to deal structuring. I like the art of a creative deal. That's what gets me going. Putting the numbers together, putting the puzzle pieces together and it not working and having to reconfigure until you make the deal work. That's what gets me going. So I had that in the back of my head. That job or internship ended, and then it was time for graduation day and a big boy job. Yeah. So I started interviewing. I put in applications at Cabela's and all this stuff, and I was just like, man, this is the path that I didn't want to go down, but I didn't see another option at this point. And this is right after VEMA, which we'll get into. And so I had this mindset just like dug into my brain. And I'm like, like, why is this not matching up? What's going on? But I got a contact. I searched real estate in the KSU search forums, and the only real estate job that came up was a opportunity at Commercial Property Professionals, CPP. And I thought it was awesome. It was industrial, which I thought was really cool.
So basically houses, big warehouses. It was warehouses.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Big warehouses. I mean, up to huge 300,000 square foot warehouses, brand new T10 lighting, like the big boy stuff.
Yeah.
And I had like 4 interviews. I've never been through so many interviews before for a company, but I ended up making it through and got a position. It was like $1,000 a month draw, like making next to nothing, all commission. But that was cool with me because I knew that I had the motivation and potential to break that income cap that most people have after X number of years. For me, it was 3 years is what I thought it was going to take me to get to that 6-figure cap and really take off. So I started that right out of college in May of 2014 and was really interested, got my real estate license, liked who I worked with. But then it finally hit me that it was going to take me a while to make that big money, and being the impatient person that I am, I started looking for other things to do on the side. Like, how can I get the short-term income until the long-term income gets here?
Yeah.
So I'm still reading books, personal development, podcasts, jumping from thing to thing. And I come across a podcast that was about flipping houses. My buddies flipped cars. I've flipped, I used to flip iPhones like in college for beer money, and I just thought that was kind of again, deal structuring, deals, buying and selling, flipping, things like that. And so I started talking, and I actually ran into a guy that worked at the same company that had flipped a couple houses. And so that's cool. So I started talking to him and asking him a bunch of questions, and he didn't really have the answers that I was looking for.
And flipping meaning like he was buying houses on the cheap, fixing them up, and flipping them for more. Is that the basic concept? Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Cool.
And he had done a couple, but I thought to myself, hey, this is a job that people are making millions and millions of dollars on. If this guy is doing it, why is he still working at CPP with me? And it's because it's a hobby for him. Mm-hmm. So he didn't treat it like a business, and it didn't pay him like a business.
Yeah, exactly.
So I started looking for people who treated the hobby that he was doing like a business, and I started learning from them. And I found that, I would say around, after about 3 or 4 months of working there, and started applying it. So I found a guy named Matt Terrio, who was my coach for the first year, and I've been on his podcast a couple times, and just really, really cool guy out of California. It's got a great, great business. And the main principle that he teaches is learn the first step, do the first step. Learn the second step, do the second step. Learn the third step, do the third step.
So as opposed to learn steps 1 through 5 and then execute, like learn the step, do the step, learn the next step, do the step. Gotcha.
Move at the speed of instruction, basically.
I like that.
Because there's so many rabbit holes for real estate. It's too easy to get, they call it a paralysis of analysis.
Totally.
I'm sure you've heard that before.
You never want to pull the trigger.
Right. So you try and learn everything, and then you're like, I don't know what to do.
You know so much. It's kind of like the guy that goes to school for 10 years and then has no idea what they want to do to make money.
Couldn't have said it better. Exactly. Yeah. So I found that, and I started doing things. I started, so mailers, I had to market, right? I had to send out these little yellow letters. People would get a piece of yellow notebook paper and a pen and write, "Hi, my name is blank. I'd like to buy your house at 123 Main Street. Please call me at blank phone number, signed Parker." And so I'll do this like at my job. I got really excited about this, and it was weird because this it kicked a fire in me. It got me going. I was like, why am I so attracted to this? And so I started writing yellow letters at work, and then looking at Zillow on my break time and checking out properties that looked distressed or maybe had been listed for a long time. And then I would map them out before I left work and see which ones I could hit in a chronological order. And I would drop these mailers in their mailbox before I knew that was illegal to put something in people's mailbox. So I was just doing that, and I was just so excited.
That is funny that it's illegal to drop something in someone's mailbox.
Yeah, it's like federal. So,
yeah, that's weird.
But anyway, I did that, and then that slowly turned into me paying the local kids in the neighborhood to write the letters for me, and I started increasing the numbers. And I was looking, I was advertising.
How'd you find these kids? You just would see them playing in the street and ask them to write a letter or whatever?
No, that would be creepy. I might have gone to jail for that. But
well, how'd you find them? What'd you do?
I went on a Facebook page, the Kennesaw Ackworth Online Garage Sale Facebook page. There was like 32,000 members on it, and people just sell stuff, bed mattresses, all stuff like that. And I said, searching for young kids that are looking for a first-time job, or searching for mothers or parents that would like to give their young kids a first job experience to teach them responsibility.
That's cool.
And I got blown up. I'm saying like 32 messages within the first 5 minutes. Like, my kids would love to do this. Oh yes, please call me. Like, I commented first. Like, they were fighting for it. And so I met with a few of them and picked this one family, and they started writing them, and it's like $1 a letter. They would go to, I had a person that would go to the probate court and copy all the records of people who were going through probate. And then I would send them the list.
What is probate exactly?
Probate is if you have a family member that's passed away and they owned a property and it goes to you.
Gotcha.
It's going through the probate process to change their name on title.
I see. So you're trying to hit them up and say, hey, do you want to just get this off your hands?
And a lot of people look at property like that, like a lottery ticket. They don't want to take care of a second house or even a third house.
And they don't want to move there.
Exactly. So it's a good person to send a mailer to, and I'd give them that list, and they would write the mailing address on the envelope. They'd write that little message with the property address, and then they would tri-fold it, put it in the envelope, close it, stamp it, drop it in the mailbox, just like clockwork. And that was.
So you had the little kids of Ackworth.
Yep. Grinding it out.
Dude, that's awesome.
That was the first experience with like outsourcing, and it felt so cool, like having these little kids work for me.
Worker bees doing jobs for you.
Just little minions out there, yeah.
So literally,
yeah. And then from
awesome.
there, it graduated to sending a list of the. You got to have the name, the subject property address, and the mailing address. And I just send that list to a mailing company, and then they would print it and mail it out. And so that was kind of what it graduated to when I started sending out a little bit more mail that the kids couldn't handle it. It was also cheaper. Started doing postcards instead of letters, things like that.
Yeah.
And so now we're at around November of 2016. I'm still doing the job at CPP and really loving it and learning a lot. And one day I have a meeting with one of my bosses, one of the head brokers. He said, "Parker, let me take you to breakfast." I said, "Okay." And he buys me a biscuit, and we just start talking. And how you liking it? What's going on? Like, do you think you're doing well? And I just kind of opened up and told him that I was really enjoying what I was doing, and I might have been getting a slower start than what I'd like, but I'm the kind of person that follows through. And about 5 minutes later, the conversation turned around backwards, and he said, "We're letting you go." Oh. Which was a killer blow to the heart, and I didn't see it coming at all.
You were like, "I feel like I'm doing great. I'm excited for growth," and he's kind of like, "We got to cut you off."
Exactly.
That sucks, man.
Exactly.
That's rough.
And not to mention, I'd been fired from like every job almost. Maybe like out of the 10 jobs I've had, like 8 or 9 of them I've been fired from. So at this point, I'm thinking that I'm like a failure to society, and like there's no use for me.
That's funny, but that kind of is a testament to the kind of person you are, because maybe you just are the entrepreneur, you know, like.
And I didn't realize that yet.
Yeah.
I didn't really realize that. I did, but I didn't know what that meant. Entrepreneur means a lot of different things. It's like it's a word that's tossed around too much today.
It's almost kind of lost its meaning in a lot of ways.
So I had a pity party and, asked what was going on. And, he essentially said that, he said it word for word. He said, "You are too entrepreneurial for what we're looking for." And I didn't even know how to respond to that. I told him he was wrong. They were making a mistake. He thought that I was going to go. I was looking for my dad at this time for some properties to roll those funds into. He hadn't spent it all yet, and he wanted to get those into properties before the 1031 idea would expire, even though that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And so my boss thought I was going to go end up working for my dad, and had this path laid out for me that I could go do. I was like, I'll call my dad's got X amount to spend just to roll these funds into another investment, and he's done. Like, there's no position for me at a company, Stiles Properties, that sold already. There's nothing for me. Like, let me call him. I'll have him explain it to you. And he's like, "Parker, we've been making this decision for a few months. It's been a difficult decision, but it's already been made, and we've all discussed it." And I was just like heartbroken.
That sucks, man.
So I go up.
So you were doing the job well, but they were just saying you're too entrepreneurial, and we think you need to do other stuff.
Everything boils down to numbers. I was an investment for them over the next X 2 to 3 years. I would need what was their return, what would be their projected return on the investment in me as an employee or as a.
And they were saying
1099.
you're probably going to be gone. You're going to be doing your own thing.
Right. Exactly. So I go
that kinda
up,
sucks.
I get my stuff, and everybody's like looking at me all big-eyed, like, "What happened?" I said, "I got fired," and they're just like speechless, like so much sympathy. They're like, "I'm really," I mean, it was like a death in the family type moment.
Yeah.
Looking back is silly, but when somebody has bills to pay and a family and they get fired from their job, like, for a lot of people, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So
especially for someone who doesn't have any kind of side hustle or any kind of income from anywhere else.
So I had no idea how I was going to tell my dad, and I told my wife. I drove to her place and let her come home from work, and we discussed it, and she was like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I've got this real estate thing that I've been working on that hasn't made me a penny, and I've just spent money on marketing. I'm interested in it, but I don't know how it's going to pan out." She's like, "Well, you need to figure it out." We're not married yet, but still, we had been dating for probably 4 years at this point. So.
And you guys met at school, right?
Yeah, we actually met in Panama City spring break freshman year.
And she just happened to go to KSU too?
Yeah.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah, and we started dating the next year. We dated for like a few months, and then she dumped me, and then I worked like a year to get her back, and it ended up working out. And we got married like 6 years later. So
still making deals.
That's another cool story, maybe for another time. But
yeah.
So anyway, I let her know, and I drove home, and I told myself, I've been listening to Matt Terrio's podcast, this real estate guy. I was like, man, this guy has really got it made. He told his whole story about how he was in the music industry, and then the whole MP3 download storm came, and he got wiped out and ended up bagging groceries at Kroger, and some guy introduced him to real estate at his job, and he quit, and now is just making the millies. And it's just like a cool story. I was like, man, that's kind of similar to what I'm doing. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. I know I can. And I told myself that if I ever got fired or if I quit or anything, I was going to buy this guy's program. Because at this time, I'd only been listening to his podcast, like 175 episodes within 5 months.
Wow.
Like, I was listening to this stuff in my sleep while I'm driving, washing the dishes, washing my truck, everything. Always had headphones in listening to it. And so that's what I did. I went home, I called him, and I bought it right there. And then after I bought the program, there was another option, like, upsell. He's like, hey, this is my last year actually coaching one-on-one students. After that, I'm going to outsource it to my older students, and they're going to help. But this is my last year one-on-one. If you pay this amount, You can get one-on-one coaching from me. You get my phone number, you get my email. I'll come out to your city one weekend of the year and meet with your team and everything. And not that I thought that I really needed it, but for the price, it was a great insurance cost. Like if I got myself into a tight spot on a deal that I didn't know what to do, and at this point I didn't have many friends that were doing this, I wouldn't know what to do, and he could probably get me out of it. So I did that. And I was the last person. I filled the last spot. Maybe it was a gimmick. Maybe they just told me I filled the last spot, but who cares? I was so jacked. Like I was through the roof. Still had no idea what I was going to tell my parents, but that's where
So at this point, you hadn't told your parents that you'd lost your job yet?
No, I didn't tell them for like another month until we were on vacation somewhere, and I had too many drinks, and I was like, "Listen, guys, I got some stuff to say."
That's funny.
So that's where it began.
So at this point, you got this guy that you've gotten as your coach and stuff. Were you making any money doing this yet, or was it all still?
I was spending money.
Gotcha.
On marketing.
Nice.
But I was.
But you were learning stuff.
I was doing the steps. Sure. I was soaking up as much content as I could, and whatever he told me to do, I was doing it.
Makes sense. So when you were sending out these mailers and all this kind of stuff, were you getting good responses, or what was that like?
At this point, I was just getting people angry, calling me back, saying you can't put things in my mailbox, or why are you mailing me this? Like I don't even own this house, or no, like why would I want to sell you my house when I can use an agent, or just everything that. They were saying everything that the gurus were saying would happen, everything but that. So I was pretty discouraged about that. And then, once the word got out and I told my parents that I didn't have the job anymore and I was doing this real estate flipping thing, I got all the cliche stuff from friends and family. Hey, you need to go look for another job. Like, what are you doing? Like, have you made any money yet? No. Like, dude, just go find another job. You do that on the side until you make some money. And it was really difficult to put on the blinders and block all that stuff out, especially when it's coming from the people that are closest to you, to just say, listen, like I can make this work. I know I can. If all these people are doing it, there's no reason that I can't either. I'm doing exactly what they're doing, so it's just a matter of time.
I feel like that was kind of that Vima mindset too.
It was, exactly.
That's awesome.
That's how Vima kind of shaped my mindset and paradigm about everything. Honestly, just everything.
Yeah.
And so let me fast forward to April. That was when I got the first phone call that really changed everything.
April of last
year? The next year. So I'd been doing this for about 4 months part-time, 4 months full-time before I got my first really good lead.
Nice.
And this was a guy who I had dropped a mailer in his mailbox like almost the first route that I ever did.
So it was literally like
months
the
ago.
Piece of paper that you just wrote on
Yep.
and dropped it in his mailbox.
This vacant little crappy looking house near downtown Kennesaw. And he called me and he said that he had this house and that it was his parents' house that he grew up in, but it was vacant. He didn't live there anymore. And I was like, okay. I'm mentally like thinking all the things I need to hear. Vacant, check. Okay. Well, so I've had this house. I'm really attached to it. I grew up in it. It's sentimental. But the city called me and told me that they're going to tear it down if I don't get it fixed up and, habitable within the next, couple weeks. So I really need to see what's going on here and what I can do. I don't want this thing torn down. I'm like, okay. Motivation, check, highly motivated. All right, it's getting better. I'm like getting excited. I'm like, okay, well, so what's the situation? He's like, well, if I don't get it fixed up, they're gonna come in here with a wrecker and then they're gonna put a lien for however much it costs to tear the property down on my name. So now I own no property with more of a debt on it than even existed before. And he said, I'll never forget these words. He said, if you can figure out how to help me out of this situation, I'll practically give you the house. If you can figure out how to not let the city tear it down and keep it so it just doesn't like crush me sentimentally, I'll practically give it to you. I almost dropped the phone out of my hand. Like it was exactly what all the gurus were talking about, and I didn't even know what to say, but I just said, sir, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. Let me start making some calls.
Nice.
I had 72 hours to buy this house. I hadn't bought any houses yet. How am I going to close on a house that I've never done before in 72 hours on a property that is covered in mold from the floor to the ceiling? The doors were open. I asked the dude why the doors were open all the time. He said, so my cats can go in and out.
Ugh.
Interesting dude. The dude was like 82 years old.
Oh, man. So basically this dude, he owned this property. He grew up in the house. He wasn't living there though, right?
No, it was vacant. His cats were living there.
His cats were living there, whatever.
Full of crap, hoarder status.
Ugh.
Bad. I wore a mask going in there. It was nasty.
Yeah, I've actually seen a house similar to that where it was vacant except for some cats. Mm-hmm. Cats, if they're trapped in there and you leave the doors closed, they'll drink the toilets dry. They'll shit everywhere.
Yeah, and then it starts molding, and it's just disgusting.
It's pretty nasty how, like, even just letting a house sit, how gross it can get.
Yeah, and it just dilapidates super fast. It's crazy.
So this guy, he had a hole in his pocket, essentially. At this point, the house wasn't costing him anything, so he was just holding on to it. But then when the city said it was going to cost him money...
It was mainly the sentimental value of having his childhood house torn to the ground. He couldn't deal with that. And so I started making phone calls. I called the city, and you know how the city is. Nobody cares about you that's a government employee. I mean, there's a few out there, but I mean, they're like, oh, well, no, you don't need to talk to me. And so I was like, well, who do I need to talk to? And they said, I'll transfer you to this person. I got transferred like 7 times before I found the person I needed to talk to. Yeah. But I was determined to figure this out. So I talked to them. They're like, yep, you got 72 hours. Send me proof of title, and we'll take the lien off. And then you just have to provide proof of construction that you've been improving the property within 2 weeks of purchasing, and then we won't tear it down. So there was a chance that I could buy this house and then they would tear it down after I bought it, and it would be my problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm terrified. I'm calling like everybody that I know that have met through investing at this point, asking for advice. And long story short, I found a title company. They rushed title, and I bought the thing before the time frame. And so now I own this crap house.
That's still about to get torn down if you don't do anything. That's still about to
get torn down. And the next couple days was a seminar that I had paid to go out to, one of Matt's seminars called the Epic Intensive, and it was in LA. And I went out there and met a lot of really seasoned guys. And I was going to rehab it and fix it up and either sell it or hold it as a rental. And they were like, you should just sell that. Oh, I didn't tell you, I bought it for $5,600. Bought a house for $5,600.
So you bought a house for $5,600 just out of your savings, or did you? Yeah,
I just had some savings, and I just wired it in there, like
shot it in there.
Yeah.
I mean, $5,600 for a house is basically the cheapest you could get.
It'd be like buying a car for $150.
Yeah. That's basically what you did. So you bought this house for stupid cheap, and now you own it, and you're wanting to rent it out, possibly renovate it, do something with it, and these guys are saying, what exactly were they saying about it?
They were telling me to resell it as is and make a quick profit. And I was like, I don't think I can do that, because, I mean, this house needed a lot of work, okay? Keep in mind,
I'm a novice. Did you put this one on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay.
If you go back to the very beginning of my Barrington Acquisitions Facebook page, you can probably find a walkthrough of this.
I think I've seen that one. Was that the one where the backyard, it was really short and like everything was like
grown up? There was a couple cars back there.
I think I saw that one.
The title was, or the address was White Oak Circle. So if anybody's searching around there after, you can see it.
If you want to see this house, Parker has a YouTube page where he actually goes into houses like this and shows you how disgusting it is.
There's some interesting stuff in there. I mean, I've seen poop with hair growing out of it. I've seen beehives dripping from ceilings. I mean, it's insane. But back to this, and that's what they told me. And I was like, well, guys, this house needs a lot of work. There's no way I can sell this for more than I got it. And they're like, so are you your buyer? And I was like, no, I'm the seller. They're like, well, you sound like you're your buyer, because you're telling me that no one's going to buy it at that price. How do you know? You're not your buyer. Just see what happens. Put it out there. And I'm like, but. And they're like, no, quit negotiating for yourself. Set a price that you think is reasonable, And to me, I didn't think it was reasonable. So I really had to like think outside the box.
Because you bought it for $5,600 and that was about as much as you were going to pay.
Right. That was my mindset. But everyone has different mindsets. Everyone has different thought processes on what's a good return, right? So what I did is I went home and I just put some Craigslist out there for 20 grand just to see. Maybe guys could get cheaper work than I could, which was true. I was getting charged the max probably because I'm a newbie guy. Contractors are trying to take advantage of me, and that's just how the business goes. So I put it out, just ads for 20 grand, and within a couple days I had a buyer for $20,000.
What? That's incredible.
And I didn't even think it was real at this point. So I had a buddy of mine.
It was a scam.
And he was like, well, I didn't think it was a scam really, but I just didn't think it didn't click. I'm like, come on, there's no way. Like,
there's no way someone's buying this shithole for 20 grand.
Until the money hits my bank account, this is not real. So I had a buddy that was in real estate, and he had connections with a lot of other investor buyers. And he's like, hey, well, let me shoot this out to some of my buyers. And he was actually the one that brought it to me. So it wasn't from the Craigslist ad. Well, he saw it from the Craigslist ad, and then he knew a guy, and he's like, hey man, I mean, give me $1,000 and I'll introduce you to this buyer that wants to buy the property for 20. And I said, okay, we'll have him go out there first. I mean, it's pretty bad, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh yeah, he already went out there yesterday. And I was like, no kidding. I said, yeah. He's ready to wire the funds and close this up as soon as you are. So you just let me know. And within a couple days, we had, the title was already pulled. He wired funds to the closing attorney. I wrote a check for $1,000 for a referral fee for him. And, I netted after everything, I think like 12 or 13 grand.
Wow.
And that wire hit my bank account when I got to the lake for a little short vacation. And it just game changer. Like,
dude,
it was.
I bet you were stoked out of your mind.
I was freaking out, right? And so I just saw the potential with this, all the stuff that I had heard from the gurus and whatever you want to call them, saying like, this is what can happen if you do X, Y, and Z. I knew all that, but it had gotten shoved in the recycling bin of my brain because I didn't see any results. And as soon as those results hit, it's like it all emptied right back in front of me, and I'm like, I can do this.
That's so awesome, dude.
A short time later, I bought my first rehab, which was in Decatur in Atlanta, and borrowed the funds for that, and that was going to be an actual renovation. Within a couple months later, I bought my second renovation, and we did maybe 5 or 6 projects that first year of 2015.
That's incredible. So basically for like 8 months you had nothing.
Nada.
You marketed for 4 months working part-time, 4 months full-time, had absolutely no positive leads. Everyone was pissed off at you. 1 lead. And then what was the turnaround time from that 1 lead to having that 20 grand buyer?
About 14 days.
Wow. That's incredible. And part of that you were in LA, right?
Part of it was LA, and then the wire hit when I was at the lake.
Wow. That's
so
incredible.
Cool.
That's an amazing story, man. So basically, after that, you were just like, sky's the limit. Let's game on. Let's do this thing.
So I took a lot of that and put it back into the business for more marketing, and started upping the direct mail numbers and streamlining some things. I was getting picked up some services like some call tracking numbers and stuff like that, so I could better see what was going on. So 5 or 6 deals for the year there. And that's just that was the first year. That's kind of where it took off from.
That's awesome, man. So when you got that call, or when you got the wire, you probably were keeping your parents in the loop of what was going on the whole time, but when that finally hit, I'm sure that they were super, just proud of you and happy and everything.
My mom didn't even believe it. She didn't even know what was going on. My dad was just like super proud and was saying, that's awesome. And I think he could kind of see, I have a feeling that he thought that it could have been, a lucky deal, or, not a fluke, but, he knew that I had a good potential going, but that I had a long way to go before I turned this into a business.
Yeah, definitely.
And but no, he was excited for sure.
That's
not as
so
excited
awesome.
as me, but
yeah, definitely.
Excited.
You're the most excited. That's so incredible.
Yeah.
And so so just kind of fast forward, like you said, through that first year, you kind of did some rehabs, So I've seen some of your videos and I've watched your Snapchats and stuff like that. And so basically what a rehab would be is you're going in there and you've got contractors coming in and renovating the whole place so it's livable pretty much, or better than it was.
Right.
And then are you getting tenants, or are you selling, or what do you end up doing typically?
So we're doing a few things now. We've got a wholesaling business, which is where you get a house under contract and then you sell that contract to another investor. So like the deal that I just talked about, I actually bought that. A wholesale deal is where you don't even buy the property. You don't use your money. You don't use anything. You don't go on title. And all you do is you take that piece of paper that says, hi, Mr. Seller, I'm going to buy your house at 123 Main Street for $50,000. You take that piece of paper and you assign it to your end buyer, which is usually another investor. You market it for, say, $60,000. And so you send that contract as well as the contract with you and your buyer for $60,000 into the closing attorney. The buyer's $60K goes to the closing attorney, and they take $50 out and give it to the original seller, and then the excess $10 goes to the wholesaler.
Which is you.
And right. And so that's what we're doing. I was doing that here in Atlanta.
So it's kind of like getting a referral, sort of.
Kind of
referring the buyer to this contract, so then you're getting the excess 10.
Think of it like you're selling the paper.
I see.
You're selling the paper for money because the paper holds weight to buying a property for X amount, like an option. Like I've got the option to buy this property at this amount, and I'm going to pay a fee to get that paper.
Gotcha.
So I did that off and on here in Atlanta. We did a couple or a few of those the first year. And then in early 2016, I outsourced that to, or not outsourced, I moved it to Charleston, South Carolina. And so that's the virtual business. We can go into that if we have time.
Yeah.
That's a wholesale deal. To answer your question, the other two things are rehabbing and then buy and hold. So essentially, let's say the flipping, wholesaling, or rehabbing, where we're buying and selling in a fairly short amount of time, that's my job. That's my 9 to 5. That's what I do for active income. But I buy rentals to change the piles of cash to streams of cash. Is it hard to pass up a $40,000 payday on a rehab for a $400 a month check from a rental? Hell yeah. It's definitely hard. It doesn't even compare. But the $400 a month is going to come every single month for as long as I hold that house. And that would be after expenses and taxes and everything, maintenance. The 40 grand, you're going to get hit with a huge capital gains tax. And then after that's gone, it's gone. Mm-hmm. So that's always been my mindset, because my dad drilled into my head from day one, you got to figure out how to make money while you're sleeping. That's what he always said. Figure out how to make money while you're sleeping and you'll have it made, and just duplicate. So I'm always thinking passive, how can I change this and turn it into this? So that's the rental income. So I've got my 9 to 5, so to speak, for flipping, and then we take those funds, and let's say we do 2 or 3 of them, and then we take those funds and roll them into rentals.
That's super awesome.
And that is when we take, we buy the house, they're usually distressed. We'll put anywhere from 10 to, we're doing a quadruplex right now that is our biggest rehab yet. It's going to be about $180,000 rehab.
Wow.
But then we'll put tenants in there. We'll get a property manager, and just mailbox money from that point.
That's awesome. So once you've got your 4 tenants, you, like you said, got a property manager, you're totally hands off. That person's job is to deal with take
the calls and stuff like that. We recently let the property management company go because we found out they were just putting our problems into an email form and sending it to us, and then overcharging for contractors. And we had built a network up of handymen to where we didn't really need that anymore. So Casey, my wife, she wanted to do it, and so we just had her be the property manager now. And
cool.
To the tenants, she is the property manager, not the owner. So there's a cool divide there. They can, moan and complain about what's going on, but she's just the messenger to them. She's not the owner.
She has no idea that her husband and her are business partners, and they own the whole property. They just all think that she's the manager.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's cool. She can say, I totally understand. Like if I had this problem at my house, I'd be furious too. But I'm going to have to, I'll put this in paper format and I'll submit it to the owners and I'll let you know what they say. So, I mean, we have low income rentals. That's our niche.
Yeah.
Decatur, West Atlanta, things like that.
Yeah.
The returns are much higher because we can get dirt cheap property. And as long as what we do is we just spend twice or 3 times the amount of time looking for a good tenant as most people do. There are good people living in any area. Just because they don't make a lot of money doesn't mean that they're bad. They're always bad people. Most of them are, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not that they're bad people, they just don't have the same morals or values, or they don't keep up with the house as much as you might keep up with your own. But there are good ones out there. You just have to look for longer. So we'll account for that when we buy the property, a little bit more holding costs.
Yeah.
And we'll look for those good tenants. And we really haven't had too many problems at all. So Casey will take those calls and cut our expenses by about 10%
That's
for
awesome.
not having to bring in a property manager. And it's not that, you hear a lot of horror stories, and we don't have a whole lot of units right now. Maybe when we get, to, 20 plus units, then it might make sense to not bring on a management company, but hire someone to take Casey's place that we train personally, that just works for us.
I like that.
That way it's not diluted. They're
There's
not
a lot
taking
of horror
care of
stories.
500 properties, and we want someone to care about them close to as much as we do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Did you ever hear about the crazy property management story that I had when I was living over here in Kennesaw?
No.
So me and Taylor Mears, we were living in that townhouse over, do you remember that? Over kind of across from where you lived in the apartment in West 22 area?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so we were living in this townhouse there, and Taylor originally found the place because he was driving around just looking for a spot, and he stumbled upon this dude named Jones. We weren't sure if it was his last name or his first name, but he just went by Jones.
Sketchy.
Yeah, and his company was like Jones Property Management or whatever. And so Taylor saw him, and he was outside of this one house, and he had a sign out that said Jones, whatever, and he started talking to him. He's like, well, actually, this one, it's under construction right now, but this property over here on the other side of the neighborhood, we just finished. It'll be finished in the next couple of days. If you want to come check it out, you can check it out right now. And so he went over there, we checked it out, all the stuff. And, the guy was a little bit weird, but we ended up taking the offer. We moved in, all this stuff. And when we signed, he said, okay, these things will be put in place by the time you moved in. Well, by the time we moved in, a couple of those things were not put in place. Things around the house that hadn't been fixed. There's certain things that we have to set up as far as, gas, heating, electricity, all that. But, for example, the garbage cans, for whatever reason, it's through the city. And so since that's the case, the owner has to set that up for whatever reason. And so we were like, Jones, what's going on? And Jones had presented himself as the owner this entire time. But what we didn't know is he was actually the property manager.
Gotcha.
So, and he had the way that he had set up this whole payment system for the rent was going to him, not the owners. And then he was giving the owners their cut or whatever. But so we encountered all these problems. We didn't have a garbage can for like 2 months. One of our showers was leaking and all this stuff. He ended up, we like phone blasted him like every day. We'd call him like 20 times a day. Get your ass over here, fix our stuff, basically. And
I would too.
Yeah, dude, we didn't have a garbage can. Like, we couldn't even throw stuff out. We had to like drive to Kroger and like throw it in their dumpster and stuff like that. Like, literally, that's what we were doing.
Wow.
So anyways, one day, about 3 months into us living there, we get a knock on the door, and there's this young Asian couple at the door, and we're like, yeah, like we thought they were like, like trying to do like missionary stuff, like handing out tracts or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. And they're like, hey, we're the owners of this property. And we're kind of like, what? No, what? And they showed us all the proper documentation as far as I knew and all the stuff. We're looking and we're like, how do you have all this? And they're like, we're saying, the property manager has said that you haven't paid rent since you moved in.
Oh, he was taking it?
He was just taking all of it.
Wow. That's their fault for hiring that guy. I mean,
and he was doing the construction, and he hadn't
No permits or anything.
He had no permits.
No license.
And he was also doing my Taylor's mom is in real estate, and so Taylor knows a good bit about that kind of stuff. And a lot of the rehabilitation wasn't under code.
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
A lot of that kind of stuff.
Well, being under code costs more money, right? So might as well just not do that.
Might as well just not do that. Yeah. So.
Probably didn't have insurance either. That was
Yeah,
nice
and the other
liability.
property that I was talking about at the very beginning that he was doing rehab on, as soon as he got us as tenants, he stopped doing the construction there, which he was supposed to finish. And they also owned that property too. So they owned both.
Because he had a little paycheck coming in.
You know, a little paycheck coming in, so he's like, I don't need to spend the time doing this.
Yeah.
You know, I got 2 tenants right now. Like, I'm chilling. Like, I'll take this paycheck.
Man.
And so when we would call him, though, it was funny because, like, his girlfriend would answer and, like, pretend to be, like, his secretary or something. We're like, nah, I know you're sleeping right next to him right now. We'd call him at, like, midnight. We'd call him at, like, 6 a.m. just to piss him off because we were so mad at this guy. And you
had figured him out by this point.
Yeah. So and he'd always be like, oh, man, sorry, man. I was out of the country, man. Sorry I didn't get your call. And it's like, bro, you were not out of the country.
There are some shady people in this industry.
For sure, man.
There's shady people in any industry, but a lot have popped up recently within real estate that is just bugging me, man.
Yep. So the Asian people were super, super nice, though. They were very, and we had all the pay stubs, luckily, to show that we've been paying this dude.
That's good.
Yeah, and so...
they sue him?
Yeah, they sued him, but I think he filed for bankruptcy, and I don't know if they ever got anything really out of it. But
weaseled his way out.
Yeah, but I think he might have maybe served some jail time. I have no idea what happened. But then after that, they assigned a new property manager that was like a legit company, and then after that, we never spoke to the couple again because then our point of contact was this new lady, but. Anyways, that was my horror story. It was pretty funny.
I mean, probably more of a horror story for the owners, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Too.
It wasn't for us because we had proof that we'd been paying this guy, and he had presented to us the whole time that he was the owner. He was the only one that we'd ever had contact with.
Man, there's a lot of ways to lose money in real estate, but there's also a lot of ways to make money. So as long as you can try and minimize those losses as much as possible, which is not too hard to do once you have the right education. You're on a good track.
That makes sense. So at the time, though, when you first started doing this, your girlfriend at the time, Casey, she was a teacher, right?
Right. She was a full-time teacher.
Nice. And so, when did she decide that she no longer wanted to teach, something that she'd gone to school for and all that, and wanted to join you on this endeavor?
She even got her master's.
Wow.
Yeah, she graduated with her master's before I graduated with my victory lap run. Yeah, so Casey never really wanted to personally not be teaching anymore. It was basically me slowly like dripping into her mind like, listen, you've got to come on board with me. Like, you don't want to be teaching for the rest of your life. Like, do you like rush hour traffic? What time do you wake up in the morning? I'm like still snoozing. And I don't know. I mean, she was really passionate about teaching, and I loved that, but I didn't love the schedule that it required her to have.
Yeah.
And she really liked kids. She didn't like the school system. She didn't like the politics that were involved and all the craziness that is teaching right now.
It's hard out there being a teacher. You got to respect the teachers, man.
They should be paid the amount that doctors get paid. I mean, they're in charge of educating our youth.
Yeah.
I mean, I would put that at the same level of treating someone with the disease.
Totally.
Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure that'd be a highly controversial topic.
I mean,
but
you want to talk about something that affects people the most, probably childhood. Is that, when you go to therapy or whatever, they talk about, well, what was your childhood like, So,
and if you're in a bad neighborhood, which she taught at a Title I school, which if you don't know Title I, it's like the lowest income kind of areas, the worst kids, the most violent, stuff like that.
Yeah, also the most funding from the government too, right? Because that
was her big thing, is like they didn't get anything.
Wow.
I mean, they needed
some grants.
They needed more teachers per kid than other classes because there was so much disruption. There was just disobedience everywhere, and they did not get anywhere near the support that schools like that need.
What grade was she teaching?
And a lot of school funding comes from the parents, and those parents aren't funding anything. They don't have any money to give to the school. They barely have money to feed their kids when they get home or clothe them.
Sometimes,
and they're wearing the same clothes like 5 days a week, Casey said.
I went to a Title I high school, and it's kind of an interesting high school situation because it was Norcross High School, and so you get part of this area, Peachtree Corners. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that area, but it's very wealthy. And then you also got this other Norcross side that tends to be lower income, you know, all the stuff that you just mentioned.
So it's mixed.
So it's mixed. So you kind of have this weird two worlds mixture, and I think that going to that high school, because I came from a private middle school, so when I went to that
was
public,
a big jump.
It was a huge jump, and I am very thankful that I went to a school like that, because on one hand, you know, you've also got problems with rich white kids. You know, you got a whole bunch of rich white kids in one area. You're going to deal with a whole bunch of other slew of problems. You got, you know, people being reckless. You got, you know, you almost got kind of similar problems. You got drugs because they've got extra money to spend and they're looking for a good time. And then in the lower income side of things, you've got drugs because they're trying to make some money. You know, so when you put those two worlds together, it's a very interesting
I can imagine
conglomerate. But yeah, I remember Title I, like sometimes at the beginning of the year, you could qualify for like free lunch or whatever, because sometimes they would say like that's the only meal that some of these kids are ever going to get.
She said like 85% of that school she was at was on free lunch.
Wow.
If not more.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And she taught first grade. It was elementary.
She taught first grade. Wow. So even during first grade, these little kids, there's still that much disruption.
Yeah, that's bad.
And it's mainly just because of poor parenting.
Yep. And
parents
you know,
aren't around,
at that age, you're with your teacher much more than you are your parents. And so it's such a important role to be in, and I just don't think those people are paid enough.
Definitely.
Especially with the schedule, having to wake up at 4:30, 4:45 in the morning to get what you need done, and get there and commute if you're having to commute and stuff like that.
Yeah, and not to get too much into the weeds on this whole education thing, but I mean, you know, having your wife be in that world for a while and probably having a lot of time to think about that kind of stuff. Do you know, what kind of what do we do here, Parker? Like, how do we fix this problem, if you have any ideas or solutions on how we can make this system better? Do we just need a complete overhaul of the whole thing? Do we need... I think that's the case.
It's just it's political. Casey actually tried to do a few things well above her pay grade to fix issues. She was not your average teacher. She was somebody who did what she was told to do, the guidelines, and then she went well above that, and then she saw problems that were way above her pay grade and tried to fix those and got reprimanded for doing so.
Wow.
Kind of shut. I mean, you see it in movies and stuff. People see things that are just obviously not right, and they try and do something about it, and they get threatened or things like that.
Yeah,
she wasn't threatened. Yeah, exactly. Do what you're told. This is what you're supposed to do.
And that's kind of the whole deal with the whole school system in general. Even as students, there might be something, and you try to kind of step out of line and do something. Hey, just sit back down and sit in the chair and listen to me. Don't suggestions are not taken lightly here. We're going to do things my way. And
so it'd be a whole revamp, but minutely thinking more funding in areas that need it, so they can have 2 or 3 teachers per classroom, because they're not getting any attention at home, so they need all the attention in the classroom, and one teacher or even 2 teachers sometimes can't give 18 kids, first graders of that level, attention at the same time. And then when you're giving your attention to 1 to 3 people, you're leaving all the other kids, and they're not learning, so they're not getting that education. So there's a lot wrong with it.
Yeah, definitely. We could go on for hours and hours about all that, for sure.
I don't know if it'll ever change, but back to the way she was thinking. I mean, she enjoyed helping, but she didn't like the structure of it, and it took 2 years of me just kind of dripping that thought into her head of, hey, why don't you work? You'd be able to sleep in, and
You can work with me.
Work from home, work with me, and but she's like, I love the kids, I love the kids, I love the kids. And I was like, well, you can do other things with kids besides teaching. There's so many other doors you can go through for that. And how much more fun would it be knowing that you could do that not because you had to make a living, but that your living was already taken care of and you were just doing it because you had a passion for the kids. Like that's
cool.
The second that you walk into the situation where you're going to work because you like going to work, not because you have to go to work, all of a sudden, even if you didn't like your job that much, it becomes a lot more fun.
Definitely.
So it took 2 years for that, and a lot of it was the numbers of me bringing her into the financial side of the business and breaking down everything that's happening, because women are so heavily revolved around security, and for that was a paycheck for her, a monthly paycheck that was coming of X amount every single month, as long as I show up and go to work. And she doesn't have the entrepreneurial mindset at all. She's slowly picking things up, but it's not what she was born with. It's something that I'm trying to ingrain into her mind. And luckily we've met and started this at a younger age, because it's much harder to do that with a wife if you're in your mid-30s.
And you've got kids.
Exactly.
And you've got,
way harder to shift that mindset.
Deep in debt and
In your 20s, it's a lot easier when you don't have those responsibilities, kids, debt, stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's why I think, people like Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff, just like, dude, you're 20. Go do something crazy. Don't wait. Like, don't go out and get yourself a secure job now.
He understands.
You've got years and years and years to do all of that BS. Like, you owe it to yourself to do something crazy and go out of your way to make something happen now.
Mm-hmm. So last August was her last day.
Wow.
Teaching.
So she's almost coming up on a full school year of
coming
not
up
teaching.
on a full year. Yep.
Wow, that's really awesome. And you guys got married in the summer of last year, right?
Yes. So we got married about it was June. So
I was gonna say there's
the date right there.
The date's up on the wall in those little bottles. That's cool.
Just a couple months after we got married, she came on full time.
That's awesome.
And it was a struggle at first. It was a struggle trying to find the roles for her and what she wanted to do. I wanted to put her in a part of the job that she enjoyed, because I know that when placing employees, if they don't enjoy the work that they're doing, they're not going to do good work. So I wanted her to like it. I got so lucky. I mean, she likes the accounting. She likes the bookkeeping. She likes knowing that everything is organized and in order. And I just like putting deals together.
Yeah.
And so
sounds like a great combo.
Yeah. So I've slowly outsourced all that stuff to her, and she's doing 10 times better than I was at doing it.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. So the husband-wife team, that's amazing. And obviously, Casey likes kids. I'm sure everyone's asking you when you guys are going to have kids and all that kind of stuff. But obviously sounds like that would probably be in your future. I don't know, but
it will be. It's going to luckily we're on the same page. I don't have her buzzing in my ear every month about it. We both want to wait till, plus or minus 30, and we're both 26 now. So,
nice.
We want a good
foundation.
Lifestyle.
Yeah.
We want to build a nice house on a good amount of land in a certain area before we have kids, in a good school district, and that takes a lot of funds to be able to do that. And we realize that if we have kids, it's going to distract us from being able to rake up enough or get a good foundation laid to be able to do that. So that's what we're waiting on. We're just saying, listen, we've got 3-ish years here before that stage of life comes up on us. Let's just put our heads down, grind it out, and lay a nice foundation so we can remove 90% of the stressors that the average person deals with when going through that stage of life.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's really that's freaking awesome. The reason why I kind of thought of that too is because how cool will it be, when you, as a husband and wife team, working together to kind of show that example to your kids. I feel like that's such an amazing example to set for the next generation, that hey, mom and dad have their thing going, and we found our little niche, and we're a team.
Yeah.
And we're able to work from home and be there for the kids. And
you said it there. That's the main drive for it is. I mean, my dad did a good job at being there with me for a lot of the the sports and all that stuff, but I mean, he still had to wake up at, a range of time in the morning and be at work until a range of time in the evening, and sometimes work late and get back after I've gone to sleep. And I'm sure I don't really remember. I'm sure he had to miss some events that I wish he would have been at.
Yeah.
And how cool will it be to literally have been making your own schedule for the past 5 years and building a business before kids even are born, to where when they do come in the picture and they're at that age, I can pick and choose where I want to be, whenever I want to be. I can go to every single event. I could be the coach of every single team if I had the skill to do it. And so that'll be cool, because I know that hurts a lot of parents not being able to spend the time that they want to spend and leave the impressions that they want to leave on their kids because of their being a slave to money.
Yeah.
Or to their job.
I mean, I couldn't have put it any better there. I mean, I think that pretty much every parent wants that. And I think there's definitely a push and pull that happens. I think that the previous generation, especially kind of the whole go to college, get a job, get a 6-figure income, have some kids, and work 9 to 5. Hopefully you'll see them when you come home, have dinner with them, all that kind of stuff.
Work for 40 years, get a gold watch and retire and have a nice pension.
Yeah, exactly. And
it doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's kind of, that was the whole American dream thing. And I think that as, the internet has become such an amazing, it's the craziest thing that's ever happened to the human race. The internet has changed the game for so many things. I mean, we're grossly underestimating the power of it, kind of just being literally in the infancy of it. It's not going to go away anytime soon.
No.
And it's just changing and disrupting so many industries. I think that that's given so many people much more open eyes about, oh wow, there are way more opportunities out there that I'm not taking advantage of, or I see this parent, or I'm listening to this podcast and this guy's got everything going on, but he's still there all the time for his kids or whatever. And I think it just, the sheer exposure to all these other types of lifestyles that the internet has brought us, I think is bringing awareness to a lot of people that, oh wow, there's way more opportunities out there than just getting a job.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that, you and I, we are white males born in America in the age of the internet. Like, if we can't make it, then there's something seriously wrong with us. Like, the fact that I see so many people screwing it up just blows my mind. Like, I understand some people aren't born with the self-motivation and the drive to do things, and some people enjoy just going to work and doing what they're told, and that's fine. If you enjoy doing that, then good for you. Keep doing it, because you probably won't have anywhere near the stress that I'll have at certain points in time trying to grow my business and going through the failures that I've gone through and will continue to go through as time goes on. But if you want more out of life and you aren't that type of person, but you're continuing to do it just because, you need to get yourself straight because you're in the land of opportunity. And there's no better time than now. There never will be a perfect time to do it. You just have to get it done.
I've heard it said that, sometimes people are like, I can't do it now because this is happening, or I can't start it now because this is happening.
Excuses every time.
In your case, you could have said, I can't start now, I just got fired. Or,
I got to get another job.
Or I can't start now, I'm about to get married, or I can't start now because my dad, what are my parents going to think? I need to get some more money or whatever. And I think that's the same kind of logic as, I'm not going to start my journey to my destination because not all the stoplights are going to be green when I get to them.
Right.
You're going to have to wait at some stoplights.
Exactly.
There's no possible way to get somewhere without having to wait at a stoplight unless, it's a block down the road. Any place that's worth the trip, you're going to have some setbacks. You're going to have obstacles in your way. And there's no getting around that. So you just got to take them as they come. Kind of like what you were saying. Learn step 1, do step 1. Learn step 2, do step 2.
A little word of advice for anybody listening, just like a little clip. The best thing that I think I ever did for myself, which was difficult to do, this is not an easy thing to do because we have been trained to do this, is to stop making excuses about anything. Down to the point to where if you're late, don't say, I'm sorry, X, Y, and Z happened. Just say I'm sorry. Start with that. And it's difficult to do. Your mind really wants you to give an excuse because we've done it for so long. But that has single-handedly been the best improvement that I've made that has spiraled out into so many other areas of my life. Is just, I do not make excuses anymore.
Yeah.
If I make a mistake, you just say, I'm sorry, I should have done better. Not, I'm sorry, this happened, and then which created me to do this, this, and this. It's just, I'm sorry, I'll do better next time.
Yeah, and that was like me on the way here. I was like, dude, I'm sorry, I was late. There was a traffic jam, and
I still do it sometimes.
Yeah,
but it's just a whole process to get your mind to not do that. But like that's the small scale version, like things like that. Just saying I'm sorry, not making excuses. The rest of it that really comes into effect is the big decisions that you need to make in life, that it's so easy to make an excuse, and it's not even an excuse that you verbalize. It's something that you are telling yourself. It's an excuse that you're telling yourself. When you can stop doing that, then you cut out all the roadblocks, or 90% of them. So you just do.
Kind of like what you were saying when you were your own buyer, when you were talking with the guys in LA, and you were saying, no one's going to buy this house because blank, blank, blank. And they're like, no, dude, just list the house. You're making too many excuses. Yep. Someone will buy it.
Yep. Have you seen the movie Yes Man? It's an older movie.
Love that movie.
Kind of same thing. Just say yes. Just do it. We're young. We can make mistakes. I've got time to lose it all and make it back tenfold again. You know,
exactly,
like,
man.
Just take some risk. I mean, you're everything on your deathbed. That's the best thing. I like the analogy of, like, you know, where all your where are the most amount of, you know, dreams and goals located. I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's like, you know, at the cemetery, you know, because they die with people.
Yeah.
When you're on your deathbed, I mean, if you want to, like, you want some motivation, go talk to people in like funeral homes or hospices, and like people that are close to death or just old in general. And man, I mean, hearing someone ask for their regrets, and chances are they're going to be very generic regrets that you could fix at an earlier stage in life.
Definitely.
I mean, it's all stuff like, I wish I would have done more of this. I wish I would have done less of this.
More time with my family.
Exactly.
I wish I would have spent less time at work. Yeah.
I wish I would have taken more risk. I wish I would have seen the world. Like, just get out and do it.
Yeah.
No
That's
excuses.
Awesome. Yeah, I've actually toyed with the idea of somehow doing a podcast at a hospice or something like that, just because I think it would be so cool to give people that kind of perspective. Because like you said, just going and talking to old people,
that'd be hard to get in.
I think
because they guard that heavily.
They definitely do.
But if you found a contact, you could. That would be.
Yeah.
I would listen to every episode like 6 times.
Yeah, I've thought about it. And another way, I know that if you volunteer at places like that, a lot of times they'll take volunteers. I think recording a podcast would be pretty...
Just slip a little recorder in your pocket and have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But I think just going and volunteering and maybe getting a foot in the door or something. The only thing that's been holding me back of doing that is mainly just the time commitment. I've made it a priority, but I've thought about that actually. I think it would be very
And that's good. See, you've kind of done that for yourself too. You didn't say like, I've got a lot of things going right now. You just went out and said, I haven't made it a priority, because everybody's got the same amount of time in a day.
Exactly.
You know, it's just like, you can get it done if you wanted to. It's just on your priority list.
Yeah, and like I've got a friend right now, you know, that recently started a podcast, and I think he's got like, you know, he started it, I think probably like 6 months ago or something like that. I think he's got like 10 episodes up or something like that. And me, I just started my podcast a couple weeks ago. I'm trying to get to 10 episodes like this week.
Yeah.
Like, so today I'm literally recording like 3 podcasts. I'm just like making it a
Hustle
priority.
hustle mode.
Hustling. And it's been like this idea that's been in the back of my mind for, you know, almost probably a year or so of just listening to podcasts and thinking like, oh, I'd want to get into that someday. But excuse, you know, I don't know enough. Or
I don't have enough content.
Or I don't really have like a super successful business, so who's gonna want to listen to me?
Yeah.
Or like, you know,
I don't like my voice when I hear it. I don't.
Yeah. Or you know, well, I don't have the equipment yet. You know, I can't just record on, you know, something. I gotta get the best quality, or Whatever kind of excuses you want to make.
I can't tell you how many people in the real estate industry I've come across that have said, people will kind of hit me up and say, hey, can I take you to lunch, pick your brain, stuff like that. And, I like to help. I was in that position before, but I hate it when I hear all these people over and over again say, I've just been doing a lot of research. I'm looking everything up. I'm on Bigger Pockets, which is kind of like Facebook for investors, a lot of content on there. I'm really just trying to get my T's crossed and my I's dotted. I'm like, well, cool. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely important to do. When did you start, kind of, kicking the dust around with this? And they're like, a couple years ago. It's like, man, dude, like,
you gotta pull the trigger.
Do your due diligence, but come on, you got to move a little faster. I've done this for 2 years and a few months, and I've done like 26 houses already.
Yeah.
And he's trying to find his first house. He's trying to get his first contract, whatever the goal is. Like, it's just so slow, man. Like, the time is now.
Exactly.
Get jacked, wake up, chug some freaking coffee, espresso beans, whatever you got to do. Just get out there and do it.
That's awesome, man. I love that. And I think this is really a good time to kind of talk about Vima a little bit. And it's funny because I know that Vima is going to come up so much on my podcast just because it was such a large, motivating factor for me, and something that really jump-started my, love for business and, just so many things. It just shifted my mindset in so many ways. And so many of my guests are going to be people that I met through Vima just because there were so many cool people that were involved. But to kind of just give a perspective, Vima, actually I'll kind of let you describe what Vima is and how you kind of got involved, Parker.
Man, I've forgotten the phrase and the spiel, but asked me like 4 years ago, I could have talked for hours. Vima is a blah blah blah. I can't even say it anymore. It stands for, what was it? Vitamins,
essential minerals,
mangosteen, and aloe vera. Yeah. And man, I mean, it was a cool company. I mean, it was hitting the market in the time where energy drinks were just huge. Monster, Red Bull, everybody was just chugging that stuff. College, they were using it for chasers and everything, and we were all drinking it. So hey, we might as well try and make some money off of it.
Yeah. So we were like distributors of this energy drink called Verve.
Right.
So we were trying to recruit other college kids, pretty much.
Exactly. So I mean, we bought 2 cases a month was like what you had to do, and it was like $120 a month or something. And we would hand out product at parties, and we would have little home events at our house and bring people in. And we really weren't selling the product. We were selling an opportunity to own your own business and to become an entrepreneur. And that's a hard thing to sell, especially to people who aren't bred to be entrepreneurs, which is a small percentage of people. But what it taught me mainly was to get rid of my fear of rejection, because that was the majority of my involvement with Vima was rejection.
Yeah, me too.
Until we did hit a really fun point. I was never one of the guys that made it to high in the upline like some of the guys that I hung out with and kind of had as my mentors at that stage did. But we got to I think I got close to gold. I never hit gold. I was off a couple cycles is what they called it, points wise. But we had at one point maybe 18 people or so underneath me that I started kind of at Kennesaw, and then Andrew was on another leg or another team, and we just had a fun time with it. I was in a fraternity at the same time, and some fraternities are different than others, and this particular fraternity just didn't really have a good taste in their mouth with MLMs, and I understood it. I thought it was kind of lame and stuff, so it gave me a little bit of a bad reputation with my closer friends, and they always just kind of joked with me about it.
Pyramids,
all that stuff. I mean, we would have parties at like the house, and I would hear like people like trash talking me like downstairs outside, and I'm like, I can hear you, I'm right here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't matter to me because the end goal was so much more important than a short-term relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
Relationships did matter, and like my image in the fraternity, at that time did matter, but I knew that this was shifting the way I thought, and even though I hadn't seen huge success from it, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. If these guys can do it, I can too.
And would it be safe to say that if you never joined Vima, you wouldn't be in the position you are now, owning your own business, or do you think you would have found that path?
At this stage of life, totally. I would not be anywhere near where I am financially or mindset-wise if I had not gone through that struggle during college. Would I have found this path eventually? I think I would have, but I wouldn't have developed the mindset as early, and it's harder to shift your paradigm at an older age.
Yeah.
So definitely thankful for it. Taught me a whole lot. Trying to think of any other big tech takeaways. I met some really cool people that I still
definitely
keep up with. Andrew being one of them. I mean, there's a lot of really cool people. I mean, all it was meeting people. That's it.
Yeah,
and I'm such like an introvert.
Cool,
like I'm not an introvert when it comes to people that I already know, but I was horrible at meeting. Like you and Taylor were like so good at meeting new people. Taylor would just walk up to anybody and spark a conversation, and I'd be like, like I could only do it to people that I already had a relationship with. As far as what I mean by that is just introducing the product and explaining the opportunity, and I think I did to like almost every person that I know.
Yeah.
To the point where I think back on it now and I'm like, I cannot believe I called that person.
Me too.
Not having talked to them since high school and introduced something like that to them.
Yeah, man.
But we were in it, dude. We were in it. We were hungry, and we were going to make it happen. It's like
Wolf of Wall Street kind of, like where the guy just gets everyone so fired up and
exactly.
Let's make some calls. Let's sell some stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was like that.
And they didn't even care what they were saying. They were just like, just doing it to do it.
No, dude.
We went to Vegas.
Yeah, we went to Las Vegas and partied with millionaires, man. That was fun.
I idled those guys, man.
Me too.
It's funny. Some of them now like are just working those 9-to-5 jobs and stuff.
And a lot of them have gotten into real estate, which is interesting.
Some have, yeah. And I'm trying to keep a close connection with some of those guys to do business with them down the road. And there's some people that have started their own businesses, and whether those be online businesses or brick and mortar stuff, but across the board, it established a paradigm shift that made a huge impact in my life personally.
Definitely. What was the biggest like for me, I'll kind of share mine real fast. Basically the biggest like shift for me, in realizing like this is something I really want to get serious about, and like everything I've been taught is a lie, kind of paradigm shift sort of thing, was when I was sitting in my bed listening to the audiobook for Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever read that one?
Oh, yeah. My dad made me read that when I was 13.
That's a great dad book to give. That's awesome. I wish my dad would have given that to me when I was young. But basically the premise of the book is like this guy, Robert Kiyosaki, he has his normal dad, which is a teacher. And then his friend's dad he owns his own business, and he starts kind of learning from his friend's dad, and his friend's dad sort of teaches him, the ways of business, and teaches him about assets versus, things
liabilities.
Liabilities and all kinds of stuff. And so reading that book just instilled this value in me that I didn't really ever think about this, because when you're young, you kind of just think all adults kind of have it put together. All adults are smart, and they have more money than me. They have a house. They have kids. So obviously they know way more about life than me. But I hadn't really considered that heavily that some adults some people just aren't good with money, and some people just don't have it together, and some people have it way more together than others. And I was fortunate enough to kind of have friends, parents that were pretty wealthy as well growing up, so that I could kind of relate in some ways. Like my dad started off, he was like an accountant, and he had his 9-to-5 job, and then he ended up going on to own a Dippin' Dots franchise. And
nice.
So that's what he does now. He owns a Dippin' Dots empire.
That's
a small
so
empire.
Cool.
Yeah, so he
Dippin' Dots are awesome.
Yeah, Dippin' Dots are great. Everyone loves Dippin' Dots. But so it was interesting because when I was in college and kind of going along that route, it was like my dad still wanted me to go get that job, and I couldn't understand. I mean, I understood, but then once I started reading that book, I was like, Dad, you yourself discovered that the 9-to-5 wasn't all that it was cracked up to be, and you realized that you needed to do something else and do something entrepreneurial, and now you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business. And it was so crazy to me that he couldn't get it. He still was hard-headed about, you still need to go out and get yourself a job and finish college and all this stuff. And I'll never forget sitting in my room and reading that book and just realizing, just boom, 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 just things going off in my brain, like, holy crap, like, there's other ways to make money. There's other, there's all, you got to learn the ways of the rich dad rather than listening to your poor dad, who might not always have the best advice. Unfortunately, your dad might mean the best, might mean well for you, but sometimes you just got to do what's right for yourself.
It's hard to realize or recognize and understand that some people make as much money as they do. And the cool thing that I like to remind myself is that there's always someone making more money than me or more money than someone else with putting in less time than that person is putting in.
Yeah.
So my motto for everything that I do and how I shape and design my business is, how can I make more and do less?
Love it.
So I think I learned that from the Rich Dad Poor Dad book or another Robert Kiyosaki book. But yeah, the average storyline of Rich Dad Poor Dad is, if you have a 9-to-5 job, don't spend the money that you make on liabilities. Spend the excess money that you make after you pay your expenses on assets. Invest in assets, and an asset is a investment that pays you money. Your house is not an asset. A lot of people think your house, your primary residence, is an asset. That costs you money to live there, whether you're paying down a mortgage or not. It costs you money, utilities. You fix up the house, you buy things for it. It's liability. So buy assets such as, the best example I can give is just rental property, income producing property, and use the income from those assets to pay for your liabilities. So that changed everything for me. I mean, the toys that I have are bought from the money that is monthly generated from those properties, and I can sleep a little better about it because I know it's coming again next month.
Yeah.
If let's say the motor blows up and something, it's not the end of the world, because it's not like I spent that 40 grand paycheck that I got from the fix and flip and I'm gonna have to go back to work for another quarter, another 6 months to do another flip like that just to make it back. That's gonna come anyway, whether I'm sleeping upstairs or whether I'm working, doing something else, making money in a different area of the business.
That awesome.
Takes time, yeah, but it is something that you will never regret trading that big paycheck for the smaller one because of the peace of mind that it gives you.
That's awesome. And that's kind of like the security that Casey was, craving.
It's funny, I was just about to say that. That was the main reason that she let go. Half of it was, understanding the business and the financials and what it looks like. And the other part was we were able to replace almost all of our monthly expenses. We got a spreadsheet in Excel out and just typed out every single thing that she and I spent, from our LA fitness membership to the mortgage to the utilities to the ring insurance that I got her when we got engaged, and figured out what that dollar amount looked like every single month. And
that's valuable.
Man, the stress that was lifted off the shoulders when we got to a monthly income to where that number was being paid by our tenants every month, whether we went out to go look for another house to flip or not, is like unthinkable.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. Or the same thing for a person that's working a 9-to-5. Once they get to the point where their rental income is matching what they're making at their job, and they're working their job because they still want to, not because they have to. It's just another big paradigm shift.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. The peace of mind that must give you is, I think that most relationship problems come from money.
They do.
And
definitely. That was my thing in Vima. That was part of my story, is that I realized like so many people getting divorced these days. Casey's parents were divorced. I was surrounded by tons of friends that had divorced parents, and like I didn't want that for my kids. And I knew that so much of divorce is revolved around finances. Now, it's not always a lack of finances. It's also an excess of finances and not having a foundation and a values built around that money. Like you have to more money just makes you more of who you already are. If you're a good person, you're going to be a better person. If you're a bad person, you're going to be a worse person. And in rare cases, you can be a good person, then money can turn you if you don't have your values really strong.
Yeah, agreed.
So that was my thing with Vima is I understood how much a lack of money affected relationships and stress and arguments and things like that. And I was definitely like, I never want that to be an impact on my relationships.
Yeah. And I remember another interesting part of your Vima story, your testimonial or whatever you want to call it. You were kind of saying, we're young, we need to take risks, and this was too much of a good opportunity for me to pass up, even if it fails or whatever. And I remember you telling the story about how your dad was approached with potential business and
Zaxby's.
Yeah, with the Zaxby's. And if you don't live in the South or whatever, Zaxby's is a pretty large, successful fried chicken chain, similar to Chick-fil-A, I would say, or something like that. But really good chicken.
I don't know the numbers, but I think they're bigger than KFC now. KFC's
I would agree. I think KFC's kind of going down. I think people have a bad taste in their mouth, no pun intended, about KFC, but
could be way bigger than KFC by now. I'm not sure. I know they've got a long waiting list of people just to be franchisee owners.
Wow. So basically your dad was approached before Zaxby's was a success, and
he didn't think it was going to come through, didn't think it was worth the risk. He had money to lose, but it not a lot. And then again, it goes back to his dad kind of thing, and security, and he had us, the kids, and my mom and everything. So
was that to be an investor in the company, or was that to be a franchise owner and own a restaurant? Or
I think at that point it was to be a franchisee owner on a few restaurants in Athens before there were any in Athens, and now they're all over the place.
Wow, now those ones in Athens are doing quite well.
Oh yeah, all over. My buddy actually, buddy's Taylor Perry, the guy that I went to college with in high school. His dad and a couple partners own like 10 to 15 of them.
Wow.
And doing well, to say the least.
Making me crave some Zaxby's.
It's so good. It
really is good. That like the best is when you open it up, when you like take one of their chicken fingers, kind of split it open, and it's like steaming, crispy on the outside, steaming and moist, and
it's one of the best
on the inside.
Smelling places to like walk by. Like you always have that odor of a restaurant when you like walk outside. Yeah. Like, oh man, it's so good. But yeah, he was introduced with that and turned it down. Didn't think it would be a good opportunity, and I saw Vima, and I didn't want to make that same mistake, so I went through with it, and I gave it everything that I possibly had. And it didn't work out financially for me at that time, but it set me up foundation-wise and mentally for something that would, bring me good money in the long run.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, I guess I'd say long run, really not long run.
Not that long, man. You're doing well, and that was one thing that you mentioned a minute ago too, is kind of your toys and all that kind of stuff, because you have that extra money coming through, and you're not so worried about something happening. That was what I was gonna mention, is we both have a love for cars too. So
yours might be a little more than mine. You've got a solid drive for that. I see
do
your
love
Snapchat.
Cars, man.
I enjoy watching that stuff. Like every time you see a car, it's like make, model, year, and then like an interesting fact about it. I'm like, man, how do you know all this?
Yeah, that is something kind of quirky about me. Is like I love to know all the little quirks and the unique things about
intricacies.
Cars. And the thing right now is I'm actually looking for a new car right now, and the thing that just bums me out is like my price range is just such bland, boring cars that have no personality. Something about them pisses me off, whether it be the outer appearance, or I'll find one that looks cool and
you've got good taste
inside. Yeah, and I've got good taste in it. I've got too good. There's an expression here. I'm grasping for it. I can't think of what it is, but I've got the wrong budget for my tastes, basically. You know?
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, I really do appreciate, you know, the little nuances that each car brings. And one thing that I love that especially is like exotic cars, because so much thought goes into the driver experience and the looks and how it works and just the crazy engineering. And you know, I'm not that guy that's going to be working in the car industry making the cars, but I do appreciate just a
attention to detail.
Yes, the attention to detail. Like, no one's ever going to notice this except for someone who owns it or someone who really loves it and has a passion for it. And you know, whether it be the button placement of the dashboard, kind of just the stereo and all that kind of stuff, to the driving experience itself, I really can appreciate a well-built, well-maintained car that, you know, just there's something about it. But but you've bought a couple toys recently, so you've got a Beamer right now, right?
Yeah, I got an M3 not too long ago, which has been really fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then that's the only recent car purchase. I'm not rolling in it yet by any means, but I'm wanting to stay. You know, I'm going to start slow.
Is like a good...
I can't piss Casey off.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, we got bills to pay. You know, it's like, no, it's taken care of.
Where's my car?
Yeah, but she's got a Tahoe and she loves it. And then I've got what was my dream truck for a long time. And that's what's funny, man. You can't really. You can love cars and you can love, you know, the toys and the vacations and everything, but you get used to all this stuff, man.
Totally.
And by no means am I, you know, buying Lambos and used to everything yet, but you have to understand, you have to have the end thought process in mind that you will get used to that stuff. There is an end to the giddy feelings and everything, that you can't just continue to buy that happiness. You have to have your values and your goals in other areas. Like it's relationships, it's your friends, it's your family. You
got to be grounded.
Exactly. So that can get away from you. But yeah, the M's been super cool. It's my first stick shift. I needed to learn how to drive a stick. I felt like a pansy just driving an automatic my whole life. So it's more fun every time I drive it because I'm getting a little bit better.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's a '08, founded in Texas. Just awesome condition, got a great deal on it, and had it shipped over here and delivered to the doorstep. It was like the coolest experience.
I saw your Snapchat when it got delivered. I was so jealous, man. That's a ballin' car right
Backing
there.
out of that trailer was like, oh, so
there
cool.
She blows.
So cool.
That's awesome, man.
But then I got a Dodge Ram pickup truck, a diesel Cummins motor with a bunch of work done to it, and that thing's fun. That's kind of like that's what I drive to my seller appointments with, because you don't want to pull up in a BMW and try and, you know, get a great deal on a house from a seller that's in a financially distressed situation. It just doesn't put off the right image.
Yeah, it feels like you're getting screwed over by Uncle Sam, or like getting, you know, whatever, bent over backwards by some guy trying to take advantage of you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got, you know, a dirt bike and a four-wheeler and some stuff and some small things, and I like mountain biking with Casey, so we got upgraded the mountain bike recently. But, you know, what I really like about the income is just the freedom. Like,
time freedom.
I mean, cars and you know, the activities that you can do. I mean, that's awesome, the toys and stuff, but if you don't have the time to go use them, you know, it really doesn't do you any
Exactly.
good.
You know, you could have all the cars in the world, but if you have no time to drive them, then what's it all for?
Yeah, and if you're just driving it to and from work, it's not that much fun.
Yeah, a lot of times people talk about their daily and their weekend driver, and it's kind of like, why can't you drive that weekend driver whenever? You know, like in your case, you know, like you said, you don't want to be driving the M3 to seller appointments, but, you know, you probably drive it a pretty good bit, you know, for every, you know, other stuff.
I'm trying to keep it low. Like, I'm moving to Colorado in the fall, and Casey and I are going to go out there and just kind of live that little West Coast life for a little while.
That's awesome. I think I remember you said that on Facebook or something, right?
Yeah, we just got a lease signed finally. We've been working on it it's been something that I've been wanting to do for the last couple of years, and we've been planning for a long time, setting the business up to where it can function virtually and stuff like that. And yeah, we're moving out to Silverthorne, Colorado. It's just
nice.
It's like 8,000 or 9,000 elevation. It's in an avalanche zone. It's just like out there.
Wow,
small town. And we're just going to ski for the ski season and come back in April. But we're going in September, and snow won't be falling until November-ish. So I'm planning
Got a
on
couple
getting
months.
some good mountain biking in, probably going to bring the dirt bike out there, maybe rent some side-by-sides and do some trail riding and stuff and try and get the full effect. And then we'll have it for a year lease. So we're going to come back in April and then kind of go back in trips, maybe bring some friends and stuff. And,
Nice.
and I want to pick up fly fishing. So really it's been something. I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I wanted to live in a different area. I wanted to be forced to create a new circle of friends.
Love that.
Just stuff like that. Just being out of my comfort zone, and it's going to bring up new opportunities that I never would have been introduced to if I didn't push myself out there.
What are you going to do with this spot while you're gone?
Rent it.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've got somebody that's going to rent this, so that'll pay the mortgage, and we're actually going to cash flow a little bit off of it too.
That's
so
awesome.
That'll just go towards paying the lease on the other place.
That's great. That's awesome, man. So you also I don't know how much you do it anymore, but you used to be a pretty big hunter, right?
Yeah, I still do.
Still do hunt a pretty good bit.
Mm-hmm. Trying to, I mean, that's another thing. Is something that we used to not be able to leave.
That's a big time
until
commitment.
Friday. It is a big time commitment. You used to not be able to leave until Fridays, and after work, and then go, and you got to fight rush hour traffic to get out there. You get there late, then you have to wake up early Saturday morning, and you're like sleeping in the stand, and then you go Saturday night, and you leave on Sunday. Then you got to get, me and Casey meal prep, so then you got to get back early enough to go grocery shopping and buy all the food and cook it, and by the time you're like dead. So it's fun, but it was exhausting almost to the point where it's not enjoyable. And now it's so much better. We can leave Thursday afternoon in the middle of the day where there's no traffic, get down there, go out to eat that night, get everything ready, go to bed early the night before. It just changes the whole feeling of everything.
That's awesome,
so
man.
Not that work is not being done. I'm still on the phone doing things, and Casey's helping out now. So she'll have the iPad, and we do a hotspot in the car, worked on the laptop, stuff like
nice.
that. But so it's not like it's all passive and life is just gravy and I have no
of
responsibilities.
course.
But
the freedom that you have is much better than what you had before.
Much better than the alternative.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we did some turkey hunting this spring.
Did you get anything?
Yeah, I got my first turkey. I've been turkey hunting for like 4 years, and first one was this season. Those are some tricky birds.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a big one. It was a Jake, which is like a younger male. But still was a really cool hunt. He came in just strutting. Fan blown up. Basically it's like strutting your stuff. Imagine a bodybuilder walking into a gym all broad-shouldered like that. That's how he came in, because there was this hen, and a hen's a female bird, and the hen, we brought the hen in with a decoy, and it was walking in back and forth, just kind of like chirping. And you sit on the ground versus in a stand. And so I'm on the ground at this tree, and then about 20 feet behind me is Casey with the camera filming it. I've got this video on my Facebook page. And then her dad, it was a 3-person hunt, and he was over about 30 feet to the left calling it in with the turkey call. And so the hen came in, we all got quiet, and then we had 2 decoys set up. This hen almost stepped on my foot. That's how close it was to me. And then the hen started making its natural call, and a tom is what you call an adult bird. No toms came in, but this Jake just came in strutting real fast and got within about 20 yards of me, saw the hen, kind of checked some things out, and we just got a perfect shot on it.
Nice. So where would you pop one of those as far as the shot goes? Right in the
They're
head?
Tough birds. They're like armored birds, basically.
Wow.
You have to shoot it with a shotgun. You've got to use a real tight choke. A choke is what you screw into the end of a shotgun that controls how tight the spread of the BBs stay. And a turkey choke is a long, skinny one, so it keeps that wad tight for a longer distance. So you have more BBs hitting within a small area.
Because you don't want to blow their whole body apart. If you had a wide choke, you wouldn't have any meat left.
Well, even if you did hit them in the body with a tight wad, they would fly away.
Really?
Their skin is just incredibly thick, so you have to hit them in the dome, like dome shot, 100%, or they will not go down.
That's funny.
And a lot of times you hit them in the head with maybe 3 or 4 of the BBs, and you've got to go up and hit them again once they're down, because they're flopping around, and maybe you injured them, but they're not dead. They're tough birds.
And you do bow hunting too, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's with deer.
For deer, yeah.
And I actually remember one thing I didn't mention in our whole VEMA rabbit hole was one time during the period of when I was over here in Kennesaw, one of my buddies I was staying with for a bit, something happened and I needed a place to stay. And I remember you allowed me to stay in like the extra room of that little
I remember that
little apartment thing that you guys were staying in.
I remember
that was crazy, man. Those were crazy times, but I just remember being super grateful because I'm like, dang, like I don't even really know Parker that well. We'd pretty much just met like a month or two before.
Yeah.
And that was just like a testament to how cool you were, you know, like, yeah, man, we've got this empty room that technically I don't know if there's no tenant for it, so I don't even think we're supposed to be really using it. But
I don't know where that dude went. Like, he moved out and then they never put anybody back in, so
the door was open and there was an extra room in his place. And I remember though one of your bows was in that room though. That was the storage room. Yeah, there was a storage room and I ended up sleeping there. I remember one night I was trying to, there was also a lot of fraternity shenanigans that were going on there too, because it was kind of like the fraternity house, since there wasn't like an actual official house on campus.
Exactly.
But I was just grateful that I had a place to sleep, because I'm like, dang, if I, you know, because we were doing our Vima business in Kennesaw, and I was like, if I don't have a place, then I've got to kind of commute or figure out something else. And that was before me and Taylor had moved into that place with the terrible property manager guy.
Well, it's kind of cool though, because it made me like more focused on Vima like full time, and you know, because I only knew you from Vima, so like whenever I saw you, like that's what I thought, and I was like, let's grind, let's go.
Yeah, let's do this. Yeah, that's badass. So, but anyway, so your bow was in there, and you do some bow hunting and stuff like that.
Started rifle hunting. The first buck that I got was on actually my Taylor Perry, the guy that we've talked about a couple times, his land in Elberton, Georgia. And then, you know, it's fun, but it's just a time commitment. And then once you see it, if you see it, it's pretty much done unless you're just a horrible shot. So bow hunting is like a whole nother ball game. You've got to be, you know, I mean, if you're making 100-yard shot, you know, with a gun, you've got to be at, you know, 25 yards average with a bow, and you can still make you can make a 40-50 yard bow shot still with a nice bow and a good sight, but the average I would say is closer to 30. And yeah, I mean, and at that yardage, you're in a climber or you're in another type of blind, and your scent is coming into play. So it's not like you're in your blue jeans and work boots and sitting in a tree stand 150 yards looking over a giant, you know, soybean field. It's not like that. You're like in the hardwoods in a climber, and deer like walking under your feet. And if you don't watch your scent and make sure your clothes are on point and everything like that, and are completely silent, and your movements have to be so slow and fluid, and doing it when the deer is looking away. I mean, there's just so many ways to screw up.
Yeah.
So it adds a few layers of difficulty, but it's more fun and more rewarding.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When you do get one.
I've actually never been hunting before, which is kind of crazy growing up in the South and stuff. But like my dad's not a hunter, and like
it's not crazy. I probably wouldn't have either if it wasn't for Casey. Honestly, that's the reason that's
kind of interesting.
Her and
you
my
don't
buddy
think of girls as typically hunters, but that's really cool.
She grew up going to a farm, her grandparents' farm, and you know, they were all about it. And her brother was big into it and everything, and she enjoyed it. Her other sister doesn't enjoy it. She did it first, but she kind of grew out of it. So some people did, some people didn't, but she held on to it and really enjoys it. So
that's cool.
Between her and a buddy that I was close with when I went to college, they kind of both got me into it. But yeah, my parents weren't into it. I mean, we grew up in quote unquote the city. It was a rural area kind of,
but in Athens,
not farm or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, she introduced me to it, and yeah, so turkey, deer, quail, like small bird hunting is really fun. That's more of like a, you know, kind of like a fratty type sport.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
like rich old men kind of.
Yeah, let's shoot some tiny birds.
Yeah, going out there
and
popping them, and you know, using the dogs and stuff. That was cool.
Yeah, that's definitely a fratty type deal.
Duck hunting is another really cool thing that's tricky too. You gotta be a real good shot. You know, being out there in the cold, breaking ice, and I really want to do a Alabama hunt this year, like an Arkansas trip or something. That's just where it's in like the flyway, and there's just way more birds than there are in Georgia.
That's cool.
But yeah, hunting's another huge, you know, wide sport that you can do a lot of different things with.
And I think that there's going to be people who listen to this that, you don't have to kill those animals, blah, blah, blah. How much of your diet do you, use the animals that you've killed? Or do you not really eat much of what you've...
No, I do.
Obviously
I
you're
got a
going to eat what you
freezer.
kill, but...
I got a freezer full of deer right now. Last week we stripped up the turkey, the wild turkey that we got, and cooked it on the green egg.
Nice.
With some green beans and some broccoli. What else? The deer steaks are obviously really good.
Yeah, and when you shoot a deer, you got food for months, pretty much,
Yeah.
So,
more than years.
Literally.
Depending on how big it is and how much you eat. If you got a big family, it's going to go by quicker. But
yeah. Or if you shoot an elk or something like that, you've literally got food for days.
Casey, for her 21st birthday, her dad took her out to shoot a buffalo in Missouri.
Whoa.
She shot a buffalo. That's the skull right there.
Oh, no way.
That's what
I was
she
going to
shot.
ask you about that skull.
It wasn't from an antique shop.
That's badass.
And then we've got the rug, the fur under our master bed.
Oh, that's amazing.
Upstairs.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so we had that for a long time. Her brother shot an elk, and we did that. So her dad always has meat. We're going back and
getting some meat
and
That's
jerky
awesome.
and stuff. But yeah, so I think the only thing that I haven't eaten, when we went quail hunting, we ate the quail. There was a cool little plantation. Like they took the birds back and cleaned them and fried them. We had fried quail for lunch right after the hunt.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the duck we'll bring back, and I'll cook the duck on the green egg, like Cajun style. I'm trying to think what other types of...
How many people does it take to pack out a buffalo? Or how do you pack it out? How do you get all that meat out of there?
2 people can do it, depending on how you're carrying it.
And how strong you are, I guess.
They weren't on a huge safari type... they didn't track it for miles and miles out into the wilderness. It was closer, more of a guided hunt in a... I don't know what you would call it. But they didn't.
It was a high fence kind of deal where there was a bunch of them kind of enclosed, or
kind of, yeah. They had to track it for an hour to 2 hours, I think, and she shot it 5 times before it went down.
Jeez.
It's like you track it, you get it, you shoot it, it runs off. You find it, you track it, shoot it, it runs off. You have to keep doing that. They're tough.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So.
So she had to track it down 5 times before it finally keeled over?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it was just...
Yeah, how heavy are those
huge
things?
Animal. I wish I had the picture somewhere around here, but I don't know how much it weighed, but it made it look like she was standing next to a school bus. It was crazy. But yeah, we pretty much eat everything that
That's
we
awesome.
kill.
You said you meal prepped. Are you typically trying to incorporate those meats into your meal preps, or
when we have it, but not necessarily?
Gotcha.
I think it's cool to do that. There's an enjoyment that I get of eating something that I've taken, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And learning how to cook it to where it doesn't taste like real gamey. There's an art to that. You got to spend a little bit more time with it. But yeah, meal prepping is something that we've incorporated into our lives to just have a better diet and get rid of processed foods.
And a good structure too. That's one thing that I found through meal prepping is you have a nice structure of when you're going to eat, and you're never at a loss of I haven't eaten today. McDonald's sounds good, whatever, and you just kind of find whatever fuel to shove in your face that you can.
It breeds discipline.
Definitely. And self-control. That was one thing I was talking about on my last podcast, that we've just got a large self-control problem here in America where
totally
people aren't disciplined. They want what they want now, and they don't want to think about the repercussions of those actions, whether it be some kind of crime you commit, or whether it be the food you shove in your mouth, or whether it be the job that you have, or whatever it might be. But we were kind of talking about with people that make excuses, a lot of that boils down to having self-control too.
Exactly.
But I think we should probably wrap this boy up pretty soon. But I was gonna say, just a couple practical things for people who are listening. Maybe they're really inspired by your real estate story, or maybe they're really into hunting or some other kind of activity that takes up a lot of time, or they want more freedom or whatever. What kind of like tips would you give them as far as, or advice would you give them as far as maybe getting into the real estate market, or just tips in general of how they can reclaim some of that?
I mean, achieving what you want to achieve is like really simple. It just boils down to self-control and discipline. It's all the stuff that we've been talking about. So I don't want to reiterate that same stuff. That's the boring part about it, is there's no silver bullet. There's no golden tip that all these gurus and online media guys try and pitch on the Facebook advertisements. There's like, learn this one thing that will transform your life. Like if they were to type
once I learned this one thing.
Exactly. There's so many little like slogans like that. But if they were to type that out, it could be said in a ton of different ways. But it really is just write out what you want to accomplish, figure out what steps need to be taken. Small steps, break them down. Don't have this huge goal of I want to be a millionaire
or get your license or something. You got to break down what's the first step in that.
Exactly. Take the time to break that stuff down into achievable, not achievable because it's all achievable, but just small goals that you can wrap your head around, that you can do this week type thing.
Yeah.
And then just do it.
That's awesome.
It's just do it. It's like so stupidly simple.
Yeah. And like for you, that first step was, I'm going to send out these mailers. I don't know what it's going to lead to. It might just be wasting my time, wasting my money here, but I'm going to put some feelers out and try to make something happen.
My direction was send out mail, and when people call, say this, this, and this. And that's what I did. I sent the mail, calls came in. I was scared crapless, didn't know what to say. I was stuttering, very unconfident, but I just did it. And after I did like 100 phone calls, I was 10 times better than I was before. And after I did 1,000 phone calls, it was nothing. And a few thousand more, I outsourced it and had somebody else take the calls.
Yeah.
So I could go do other things. But yeah, send out the mail, say this, this, and this. Just learn step one, do step one.
That's
all right,
awesome.
Cool, got it. Learn step two, do step two. And don't skip the steps. Don't try and learn everything, because your brain has a way of just locking up and freezing. Because you start saying, oh, well, what if I could do this? And oh, if I did that, what if this happened? There's a lot more risk here than I thought. Don't worry about all that, just because your mind will play games on you. So just start small, have the big end goal in mind, break it up enough to where you can really like see distinctly what you need to do, and then just go one step at a time. Find a mentor, find somebody who specifically is doing what you want to be doing and has the lifestyle that you want to be living. That's so important, because everyone has an opinion and everyone wants to shove it at you. And you have to be careful who you take that advice from. If I took the advice from the guy at CPP that was flipping houses, I'd probably still be treating it like a hobby like he was. And I'd probably still be working there or another 9-to-5 job. But if I went to someone who had the freedom and had the passive income and wasn't just flipping houses, but he also had a large passive stream for long-term investments, and he had the same mindset that I wanted to have. And so I just dug until now I'm on a personal phone call relationship with him. And it's just changed my business. And do that with a couple people. Doesn't matter. Start with one person. Just find a mentor. Move at the speed of instruction that mentor gives you.
Yeah. And I know that there's probably a million things you could talk about with this, but you kind of mentioned that you had like sort of a virtual business that you've set up and that you're going to have that's running while you're out in Colorado. Obviously I'm sure that there's a lot of things you could talk about with that, but kind of just break down like what that means and how someone would, let's say someone's out there and they do have some sort of successful thing going on. How do they take their business to that virtual level and outsourcing and all that kind of stuff?
Just a team, boots on the ground. So I took what I was doing here, which was wholesaling houses. That's the easiest part of what I do to outsource, because we're not actually taking title. We're not actually hiring the contractors. You're simply getting a house under contract, selling that contract, and moving on to the next.
And I didn't ask you this. Do you have your real estate license, or is that something you didn't need to have in this case?
I don't need to have it in this case. I do have it. It's inactive now, and that's inactive because I let Casey get hers, and so she's in charge of selling our rehab, so we can save that 3% fee on the back end, and it helps in other ways too. We can run comps on the MLS and stuff like that. But over there in South Carolina, and for the investing business, the whole investing side of the business, a license is not needed to buy and sell houses. It's really more of a detriment because you're held to a professional standard, and I would have to do all these disclosures of my license number and my brokerage because they're held liable for things that I do. So I let that go inactive. She can have hers. She's not listed on the LLC, so it's technically not, she's not doing that. She's not sending out those mailers.
I see.
But yeah, nice. So South Carolina is where I moved that wholesaling business to, and we do buy and sell about 2 houses a month over there.
Nice.
Three this month, possibly 4.
So is there a brick and mortar place where these people that are working for you converge and work together, or they're kind of all just reporting back to you?
Yep, just virtually. I've got so the way it breaks down is I'm sending out 19,000 pieces of mail a month over there, and those calls come in to my lead manager, who is a local stay-at-home mom in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and she takes all those phone calls through our system called CallRail, and she goes through a script that's made in Podio, is the CRM that we use. She plugs those answers in into Podio from the seller, and then that gets pushed into the workspace. And then it notifies my acquisitions manager, and he is also local in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. He's been in sales. He's awesome, and his responsibility is to take that lead from that point, give him a call, introduce himself, say he'd love to come out and see the property, meet them face to face, shake their hand, take some pictures of the property, and see if it will be a good fit for us. And his goal is to get a contract signed.
Nice.
If we can't get a contract, then we do a referral system. We work with an awesome real estate agent out there with Carolina One, and so we try and get listings. A lot of people, we get a lot of people calling and say they want to sell their house, but not all of them want to sell for the cheap cash price that we're looking for, because they're not all in distressed situations. Very few are. So those people we try to convert to listings. We have our real estate agent over there list it, and then we get a small percentage, like 20 to 30% of the listing fee that he gets.
Gotcha. So you don't just completely lose that lead like you were before.
Like we were trashing them before. Exactly.
Gotcha.
So that's the acquisitions manager, and then if he doesn't get the contract, then he follows up until we either, until we get the lead. Until we get the deal.
Yeah.
And sending out the same mail every single month, so new ones coming in. And then let's say he goes on an appointment, gets the contract signed. From that point, it's on to dispositions, which is selling. So I have a dispositions assistant that takes all the information in Podio and creates a flyer, a digital flyer. An Active Campaign is the company we use, and she blasts that out to our list of cash buyers. We've got our 300 to 400 cash buyers over there, investors that are looking for property, and that's just on an email list. So we send that out to them and we say, hey guys, we've got 123 Main Street here for $150,000. It needs $25,000 in work, and you could resell it for $210 is the average, after repair value. Or you could hold it and it would rent for this. It's got pictures, Dropbox link of the pics, and we fill out a repair sheet that says, it needs new windows, needs new roof, it's got a plumbing leak here, and then an estimated, rough estimate of
cost of
repairs. Yeah.
Wow.
So we give a little bit of information for the buyers to kind of get them going, but we encourage them to do their own due diligence. Our numbers are just estimates. And then the calls come in to me. I'm taking those calls right now as the dispositions manager, and so I'm basically just taking those calls from the investors, and they're we're negotiating prices.
Making those deals.
Will you take 145? Yeah, I'm putting the deals together. So I'm doing what I enjoyed doing with that, and eventually I will outsource that part as well, to where I'm simply just managing the managers
as a whole. Yeah.
And then the next step, I'd like to take it to where we're doing 5 to 10 deals a month instead of 2 to 3. And then at that point, people in the larger scale version of what I'm doing, we'll bring in a CEO, a CFO, and kind of then it starts to take shape of a normal business.
Yeah, definitely.
I just became part of a mastermind that is out in the West Coast, and guys that 6-figure months are just a regular, nonchalant type thing.
Man,
so
I only hit 100,000 this month. Damn.
Yeah. So I'm excited to be a small fish in a big sea again over there, and hopefully soak up some really good content and have people look at my business and just tear it apart and say, dude, why are you doing this? You should do it like this. And I think it's going to be a good investment in the long run.
That's awesome, man. One last thing that I wanted to ask is, how do you find good people? Like, why did you choose Mount Pleasant, and how did you find those people?
That's the hardest thing, is finding good people. The first acquisitions manager was a dud. I thought that the best person for that role would be a real estate agent. Turns out, most real estate agents are lazy, and you need somebody in sales for that. So
someone who's motivated to get out there.
Exactly. So I had to let that person go. The first lead manager was also good for a while. It was actually a virtual assistant in the Philippines. She was taking all the calls. I paid her like $2.50 an hour. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And they love that over there. That's a lot of money.
That's good
over
pay
there.
for them. And it's interesting you brought that up, because actually in the last podcast we were talking about the Philippines and how this guy's grandfather owned a sawmill there, and a lot of times he was thinking, well, this would be a kind of a negative thing, because they're like deforesting this island, but a lot of the natives there were actually very thankful for it, because it gave them an income working at the sawmill that was a lot higher than the average Filipino.
Yeah.
So even just working virtually online there, they're hustling. She's making $250 an hour, which in our standards is not great.
They work harder than than Americans. It's crazy. And they don't complain, no excuses, nothing. That's just the way that their work ethic is.
That's great.
The dispositions assistant that does the postings for me, she's a VA as well.
Wow.
I pay her. She works for me 2 hours a day, so a quarter time basically. I pay $180 a month. It's just insane, the quality that she brings for $180 a month.
Yeah.
But I had to let the VA go, because it turns out the people in South Carolina, it's just, it's a small, I'm in Charleston, so it's a small, tight-knit community. It's very niche, and they just don't like talking to people that sound like they're not from there.
Yeah.
They're mostly older. 99% of the people that I'm buying these houses from. Exactly.
These damn foreigners, I don't want to talk to them.
I had people saying that, and it also brings on a more of an image of a scam. If people don't understand real estate, they're like, you're going to pay cash for my home? Like, what do you mean you're going to pay cash for my home? And then she sounds like she's from the Philippines, and all of a sudden they close up. It's not like we were distinctly losing deals that I could see, but people were not giving as much information as we needed, and then they were not calling back or taking calls. And Casey was actually the one that said, listen, you need to drop her, and just, even if you have to pay more for somebody local, give it a shot. And I did, and it was the best thing for the business. So I'm so glad that she told me that.
So advice for people would probably be, use a VA for things that maybe
that aren't
no
personal.
One's are going to need to talk on the phone as much, or maybe where trust isn't as big of an issue.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yep. And as far as finding good people, it's just a numbers game, just like business.
Yep.
It's a numbers game. You got to go through people. You got to have a lot of interviews, and chances are the person that you hire is not going to be as good as you thought they were going to be. And you're going to have to let them go and bring on somebody else, and you don't know how many times you're going to have to do that. Maybe you get lucky and get a good one in the first run.
Yeah. And like you said,
it takes a couple.
It's kind of interesting that you mentioned, that the one person's like a stay-at-home mom or whatever, and originally you had a real estate agent. Is that what that was, or was that?
That was the acquisitions manager.
Gotcha.
So real estate agent, and then
now
and she was in Columbia, so she was actually an hour or so away, and we weren't doing appointments, and that was a big mistake. So I ended up getting someone in Mount Pleasant, because that's very close to Charleston.
Makes sense.
And then now he's driving and scheduling appointments, and he's a very nice guy, clean cut, sales. He sold shutters for houses for a long time, and actually just quit He quits. His last day is June 1st.
And he's doing full time with you.
He'll be full time with me, which is exciting.
That's cool. That must be a big responsibility for you. Does it feel weird employing people full time?
It does. Yeah. It's interesting. We were talking about this the other night in our Bible study because the two people that lead it are both entrepreneurs that own businesses and have employees, and we kind of both felt that same feeling of not entitlement. What's the word I'm looking for? Like responsibility to provide X, Y, and Z for said person, but it's really backwards the way you should be looking at it. Really, I mean, if you want to take that stress load off of your shoulders, you provide the opportunity and you provide the tools that they need to succeed. But if they don't succeed and take with it what they need to do to make it happen, that's their fault.
Yep.
So that kind of relieves a lot of stress with saying that I've got to provide income to help this family be able to do what it needs to do. That's not true. You provide the opportunity and the tools, and they do with it what they please.
Yep, and income's earned, not given.
Yep,
that's for sure.
Yeah, people don't get fired by their employers. They fire themselves because of the decisions that they do or don't make.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, I found him. But a practical tip: LinkedIn is how I found the acquisitions manager, who has just been a huge asset to the business.
Cool.
I did a little ad posting through them and
Nice.
got a lot of people and just did some interviews, and he came out of that. And he actually introduced me to the local lead manager. The lady lives in his neighborhood.
Nice.
So he's like, hey, there's this stay-at-home mom. She moved in a year ago. I figured she might be good, and I talked to her. She's looking for some extra work. She actually used to do collection calls, so she's perfect for taking all these calls and dealing with rejection and or overcoming rejection and staying polite and nice the whole time and just scraping a bunch of info. So it's been
That's
cool.
awesome. Well, cool, dude. I think that's pretty much it. We touched on a lot, man. But
it's been fun.
Any final stuff you want to plug or mention? I know you should probably mention your YouTube channel and how people can find you and whatever. Or maybe they're trying to sell a house.
I'll throw a couple things in there. If you want to check out the Facebook page, my business Facebook page, Barrington with a B as in boy, Acquisitions. There's some cool stuff on there if you want to cruise through. I link all the YouTube videos that you were talking about earlier onto that page. And then my name's Parker Stiles. You can see that on there as well. Find me on the personal page. Don't do Instagram anymore, but Snapchat, Parker Stiles, Stiles. And other than that, just reach out to me if you have any questions about anything. If you know of anybody that is looking to get rid of a house, we specialize in fast, quick cash closings on distressed property, or even, it doesn't have to be distressed property. It could be a seller that's just in a distressed situation. Quick time frame, can't wait for a realtor to sell the house, things like that. We pay great referral fees for picking up houses from people. So let me know. But Andrew, it's been fun. I appreciate you having me on here. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, man. We just did like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that.
Wow. Didn't seem like that at all.
I know. Time, it flies by.
Cool.
Dude, cool. Well, we'll have to do it again.
All right, man. See ya.
Bye, everybody. Man, Parker's story is just so awesome. I especially love the story of how he got the call from that guy and got the house and figured it all out in like 14 days. That was just incredible. Wow. I actually didn't even know that story until having him on. So I'm really glad that I was able to get him on there so he can share that with you guys. If you want to follow Parker on social media, his Facebook page is Barrington Acquisitions. That's Barrington Acquisitions. And you can find all of his links to his YouTube videos there. That YouTube channel is awesome because it shows you really in what kind of poor condition some of these properties are in that he goes into. And it's actually kind of interesting. And he'll show you exactly what kind of progress they're making on their renovations and all that kind of stuff. Also follow him on Snapchat as Parker Stiles. That's all one word, ParkerStiles. And that's all one word. He's always posting awesome content on there as well about his business and about his lifestyle that his business allows him to have. And I wish Parker the best of luck out in Colorado and with his business. And I know he's someone that I definitely want to learn more from. He's obviously doing something right. If you want to support the podcast, the best way to do that is to go to iTunes or the podcast app if you have an iPhone and find the Andrew Deitsch podcast. Wow. You're probably already listening to it if you're on an iPhone, and you're probably already there. So it'll take even less time for you to go find it and leave it a 5-star review and give me some feedback. I would love to know what you like, what you don't like, how I can make it better. Also, by downloading all the episodes and subscribing, that helps tremendously because unfortunately iTunes is the best place for podcasts to be discovered, and so having lots of downloads is crucial for me to be discovered and jump up in the new and noteworthy section. So even if you won't listen to all the episodes, I would greatly appreciate those downloads anyways. And if you want to follow me on my social media platforms, the best way to find me is just to go to my website. It's andrewdeitsch.com. That's DEITSCH, andrewdeitsch.com. And you can find links to all of my social media handles and accounts. All right, that's all I got. Episode 7 is up next with the amazing Dr. Dre, the real one, Dr. Andrea de la Garza. I just like saying her name like that. Dr. Dre is a doctor of chiropractics, something I really don't know that much about, and we got into all kinds of stuff, including growing up in Mexico and Argentina, when she came to America, why chiropractics is so important, stem cell research, and her fitness and training styles. And I learned a lot during this podcast. I'll be launching it later today, so you should definitely check it out. So thanks for listening, everybody. You're really helping me achieve my mission of having more fascinating conversations with amazing people, and the support that I've received so far has been overwhelmingly beautiful. So thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Episode 7 coming soon. Peace.